Live from Chatterbox Sports Studios, it's Off the Bench with Thom Brennaman.
Well, good morning. A pleasant good Tuesday morning to you and yours, and welcome as always to Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. I'm Thom Brennaman, joined alongside the Ham and Eggers, Casey McAllister, Paul Fritzner, Brandon Sayo even in the house today. Got a little rest after the trip back, he and Casey. The trip back from Buffalo, NY. We're here Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to noon Eastern. You can join us on YouTube/Chatterbox Sports. We ask, as always, you please subscribe to the program. We're also streaming on Facebook on the Chatterbox Sports page. If you'd like to join us in podcast form, please do. Just search Off the Bench with Thom Brennaman, and you're dialed in. Zach Taylor met with the media yesterday after the team's meetings were adjourned down at Paycor. When asked about injured offensive linemen Jonah Williams and Alex Kappa, he said, yes, both are improving. We'll wait and see where it ends up. He also added that Trey Hendrickson, already playing, as you know, with a broken wrist, had x-rays on that wrist after leaving the game for a play on Sunday. There's no additional damage. He's expected to be ready to go Sunday night in the AFC Championship game against Kansas City. Speaking of KC, if you're going, you'd better bring the long johns. Are you guys going or no?
Still figuring it out.
Brandon. And it is expected to be really, really cold. Kickoff temp around 15 degrees. That'll drop even further as nighttime arrives in Kansas City with that 6:30 kick. The Chiefs are prepping as if Patrick Mahomes will start and play. That's according to his head coach yesterday, Andy Reid. Now, Mahomes did not practice yesterday. That's not a big deal. What is a big deal is that after injuring his right ankle against Jacksonville on Sunday, Mahomes did not throw a single pass outside of the pocket. Just FYI, he led the league with 113 pass attempts outside the pocket during the regular season. His team also scored just 10 points after the injury, something to keep an eye on. Bills quarterback Josh Allen, who suffered, as you know, an elbow injury in Week 9, that was a loss to the Jets, said he had to change his throwing mechanics because of the pain in the elbow. He did not use that as an excuse, however, in the loss to the Bengals. He said the last 2 weeks he's felt better. No surgery will be needed on that elbow. The Giants say they want Daniel Jones back next year. He's a free agent. The two sides are working on a long-term deal, but if they can't reach one, New York can tag him for a price tag of roughly $31 million a year. Can you imagine paying Daniel Jones $31 million a year?
Oh, boy.
No chance. Bill O'Brien is headed back to the New England Patriots. A former Texans head coach takes over again as the team's offensive coordinator. O'Brien spent the last 2 seasons as OC under Nick Saban at Alabama. In baseball news, the Hall of Fame ballots are being counted right now. Results will be known tonight at 6 o'clock. Some of the headline names include Scott Rowland, Billy Wagner, Todd Helton, and Carlos Beltran. Jeff Kent, who leads all second basemen in the history of the game in home runs, third most RBIs, is not expected to make it in this his final year on the ballot. Angels owner Artie Moreno has done an about-face. He had his team up for sale over the last few months, and yesterday decided, no longer up for sale, that the Angels are still in his heart and he's not selling the team. College basketball last night, Kansas loses again. After getting shellacked by TCU at home on Saturday, the Jayhawks go on the road and lose to Baylor. That's a matchup of the last 2 defending champions, 75-69. The Bears win despite shooting 37% from the field. KU has lost 3 in a row. Duke loses again. The unranked Blue Devils fall on the road at Virginia Tech 78-75. The Blue Devils are 14-6 on the year. Virginia Tech, their second win in the conference all year. Tonight, Ohio State plays at Illinois. Ohio University hosts Western Michigan. North Carolina at Syracuse. Number 5 Kansas State at number 12, Iowa State. And worth noting in women's college basketball last night, since all my friends gamble on women's college basketball, number 2 and previously unbeaten Ohio State lost for the first time last night. That was to Iowa, who's ranked 10th. And also unbeaten number 4 LSU beat Alabama 89-51. Did you guys have any money on either one of those games last night?
No, I did see him, but I did not gamble on them.
You did see them, meaning you watched them?
Caitlin Clark.
Is that what you mean?
I saw a little bit of the Ohio State game. Caitlin Clark's a lot of fun to watch for Iowa, so I saw a little bit of it, not much.
Okay.
Enough to know what happened.
Big show today. We have Zim Hude, our good friend, coming up at about 10:20. We have Paul Doherty from the Morning Line at Substack.com at 11. And our good buddy Tracy Jones coming up at 11:30. Lots of folks already are in the chat. And I'm told you brought it up yesterday. Kevin McGuff is the head coach for the Lady Buckeyes.
Yeah, former Musketeer. And a Baden guy.
Hamilton, Ohio.
Yeah.
As pointed out by Hamilton's very own Reed Mouse.
Yeah.
I want to ask you guys about something because I am not really tuned in to the Twitter world like you guys are. But what in the world is going on here with Eli Apple? When I jumped on this morning, there are a lot of people that are really upset with this guy. I don't think anybody should be surprised that he writes or says anything. That's been his MO since he played for the Giants. Number 1 pick, they ran him out of town. He goes down to the Saints. They ran him out of town. He goes to Carolina, I think, for a game or two. They ran him out of town. And in fairness to Eli Apple, we talked about it yesterday. He played very, very well the other day. He has played by and large, and there are exceptions as there are with any cornerback or defensive back in the NFL, none is perfect. He's played very good football for this team. But what has he done now in the Twitter world, Casey, since you're tuned in along with Paul?
Well, that brings us to a great segment, Tom, because Eli Apple put a seatbelt on Stephon Diggs.
Put a seatbelt on him.
Yeah.
You put a seatbelt on Stephon Diggs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Could you, before we get, this is a teaching Tom moment.
It is.
Before we get to that, would it be better to talk about this Eli Apple, Stephon Diggs thing first, or we put it up and then talk about it?
We'll put it up and then talk about it.
Okay, let's go. There's one of those that goes around on the internet.
Joe Burrow, Joe Shiesty.
Joe what? Is that the word? Is that the hip word? I don't even know what to say. What? When a viewer tells me that I'm trying to be hip and I'm not as hip as I think I am, that hurts.
All right. So here's a tweet from Zim.
From Zim Hude.
Zim Hude.
All right. Stephon Diggs.
And this is actually about
Cam Taylor Britt.
Put seatbelts and juice boxes on Stephon Diggs. And so did Eli Apple. But what do you think that means, Tom?
Well, I mean, when I think about a seatbelt, if you put a seatbelt on somebody, I'm sure I'm way off base. The first thing I think of is like putting a seatbelt on a child. Right, you don't put. You put your own seatbelt on. You don't put it on somebody else, right?
Right.
So that seems to me. Am I onto something here or way off base?
I mean, you're kind of onto it in a roundabout way, but it basically means that he locked him down. It's a new way to say that they locked him down. You put the child in the seatbelt. You lock them in. You lock them down.
I like that.
I do too.
Could you give me an example on how I could use that, say, at home? Or hanging out with my buddies, or
I think you should ask Tracy Jones about that one.
Well, he's coming up at 11:30, so we can. I'm sure he has no idea what that means. That would be teaching Tracy.
He'd be all about restraints.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Now,
he can't spell restraint. I don't know if I can spell restraint now that I think about it.
Now I'm about to pull up the other tweet though that you're talking about.
Okay, so now we're going to zero on, and thank you by the way for that. I appreciate it.
But that's where some of this drama is starting from.
Okay,
just because of how well they played against them.
Okay.
But
so this is what Eli Apple had to say. Is that where we're going?
Yes.
That has caused so much I don't know what the word is. Angst.
Buffalo fans are not happy.
Not happy with Eli at all.
It's easy to No. It's easy to. This is first of all from Diggs, right?
So Diggs is the original tweet, and then Eli Apple is the quote tweet above it. Diggs says it's easy to criticize my reaction more than the result, and then Eli Apple quote tweets it and says Cancun on 3 with the heart emoji.
Reference to DeMar Hamlin, and that was the heart.
You,
Right? I mean, that has to be why
it
people are
has to be,
upset.
but a lot of people were saying it wasn't, but I don't know what else it could be.
But you get Cancun on 3. You get that.
The Can-
Yeah,
the
Cancun
Cancun
on
is-
3, like one, right. 1,
Yeah.
2, 3, head on down to Cancun and beat it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I got that part. People are obviously tying in, though, when you add the emoji there with the heart, I think everybody has to agree that you would draw the analogy to DeMar Hamlin. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know if he intentionally did that on purpose. I think he is just doing that because that's a great way to mock someone when no one likes you and you're trying to show that the love for that player, and you know that I don't know if it was specifically about DeMar Hamlin. I don't know if Eli Apple is that much of a douchebag, but I think it was. I don't think it was targeted towards DeMar Hamlin at all, but I do think Eli Apple went in on Buffalo. I mean, if you just check out his page, there's probably 10 different tweets from him last night and the night before.
From Eli Apple?
From Eli Apple, just going in on Diggs and the Buffalo crew. I mean, there's one about a clip of Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs doing a little handshake, and Eli Apple goes, I didn't see them doing that at the end of the game. Because, you know, the situation with Diggs, him trying to run out of the stadium, and he's stirring the pot. He's really stirring the pot with this win. But in all fairness, if you just look at the numbers, I think he kind of deserves to talk his shit, you know?
Well, but Casey, listen. Where are the days? And here I sound like an old man in a white shirt hanging out and, you know, doing the show. But where are the days where you just go out and play, you do the job you're paid to do, you do it well, you have other people that can talk about and write about it, and Lord knows there's millions of them out there, or talk about it about how well you play. Why do you have to write about how well you play? I mean, why? Why do you have to walk around all the time thumping your own chest and talking about how great you are, how great you play? Why can't you just go out, play, do your job? Do you ever see Joe Burrow doing that? Does Joe Burrow ever walk around? Does Jamar Chase ever walk around and send out on Twitter after games? Oh, I had 11 catches for 178 yards. Travis Kelce do that nonsense? Patrick Mahomes do that nonsense? No.
I don't think he was really necessarily calling out his play. I think he was calling out Diggs and how poorly he played.
But you don't think that Apple is implying that one of the reasons Diggs played so poorly was because of him?
Oh, yeah, I do think he was implying it. But if you look at the whole season, Eli Apple hasn't really talked a whole lot this whole season.
No, he has not.
And until this point.
Well, it's always in the playoffs with Eli. It's always the playoffs.
Yeah.
He just shows back up.
I actually like this. I like having a little fire from my defense. I like the smack talk from my backup corner when he's shutting down one of the elite pass catchers in the league. And yes, he does get burnt on double moves, but he didn't get burnt on a double move this time. He played very well.
Yes, he did.
And on top of that, the thing that's not getting talked about a lot is Cam Taylor-Britt and how well he played. If you go back and look at the numbers, I mean, he was just balling. I mean, they didn't target him a whole lot. And when they did, it wasn't very good.
Hey, the young man is getting a chance to play after Awuzie went down. We wondered, is this guy capable of playing as a corner when he came out, correct me if I'm wrong, as a safety?
Yeah.
So he's played really, really well. There's no doubt about it. Some AJ wrote on the chat, this all started with Muhammad Ali. Look, I mean, AJ, listen, I don't know whether you're old enough to remember Muhammad Ali. I mean, this guy, 90% of the time, it's all tongue-in-cheek and just, having a good time. Some of his interviews with Howard Cosell are as legendary, and I'd highly recommend if they're on YouTube, go find them. Because, one guy was jerking the other guy around back and forth because Howard, very smart guy, and he loved Ali, and Ali loved him. And they both understood, they gave each other some pub, and they played off the thing. And, talking about Joe Frazier, I'm a bad man. A little bit different than what we're getting out of Eli Apple. There's no comparison.
My one thing, you're not going to get me saying what he did was wrong. You're not going to get that out of me because I'm an Eli Apple stan, and I'll admit it. The dude, since being a Bengal, has played beyond expectations, and he deserves, for one, a better contract than a 1-year, $4 million deal. He deserves to get second starting money at least somewhere. But I'm happy that he's here. I'm happy that he's playing well.
I agree.
And the one thing I would implore him to do is I would like to see him talk this after the Super Bowl. I just want him to just wait a little bit longer.
Can you imagine if the Bengals win the Super Bowl and he plays well?
Oh my
You're
gosh.
going to get more than your fill of that.
Yeah, it'll be all over Twitter, and rightfully so in my opinion, because I think he gets a lot of flack for one reason or another being on multiple different teams and those teams not liking him from his.
But don't you think he brings that on himself?
I do, but I think he feeds off of it too.
I agree with you.
Buffalo fans were not pleased with all this, and given how much the two cities had connected over the last few weeks with the Damar Hamlin thing. One thing we hadn't talked about, I don't know if you saw it, Tom, that ad that Western and Southern ran right before the game, the montage of all the...
No, but I saw where someone tweeted about it. I can't remember, but
Mo Egger tweeted about it too. I had tweeted about it. Mo tweeted about it. It was a cool ad that Western and Southern ran. It was a compilation of all the photos from everything that had gone on, over the last few weeks with Cincinnati and Damar and everything, and then getting Damar back to the game. And I think the tide has turned a little bit with Buffalo fans now after having lost this game. Needless to say, I don't know how much love is lost now with Buffalo after that. And see, this is the thing: Buffalo didn't just lose this game to Cincinnati the other day. They got pounded.
Yes,
they got dominated. They got bullied, and I think everybody now on Twitter, all of the Buffalo fans are starting to have to realize they're starting to have to swallow the fact that. And they were crowned the Super Bowl champions before the season, and it just didn't work out like that. And maybe now they're going to have to go back. They're going to have to reevaluate. They're going to have to figure things out. And Reed made a great point on the box lunch yesterday. Josh Allen has regressed without Brian Daboll. And look at his turnover issues that he's had. He's not what he was a year ago.
Well, I got to tell you, I really think that elbow had something to do with it, because if you look at, they put up a stat somewhere yesterday where early in the season, through his first 8 games, and then what his numbers look like after he suffered the elbow injury against the Jets, that was a loss to the Jets. His numbers were just not the same. Now, could that be in part without having Daboll there? Perhaps. But, Allen, he's been too good in a short amount of time in the league to not think that the injury had something to do with it. I do give him all the credit in the world yesterday. He was asked about the injury. He did not bring it up in his press conference. He was asked about the injury and said, look, I was hurt. And he was on the injury list every week the rest of the season, including the week of the Bengals playoff game last week. They had him on the injury report, elbow, every single week. And he said, look, I had to change my mechanics a little bit for a while there because of the pain. He said, but the last 2 weeks, he says, not bothered me at all. And in those last 2 weeks, he was not very good. I mean, even in the Miami game, he was not very good. 2 picks, 3 fumbles, lost 1. What do we have here?
Super chat, $10 super chat from Rowdy Every Point. Rowdy Every Point.
Yep.
Says the Bengals front office over the last 3 years has been exceptional. If they can find a way to keep Burrow, Higgins, and Chase together, then that clearly establishes Bengals front office as the best in the NFL.
Well, look, we've talked about it before, and we're going to have him on the show when the season's over. He's already agreed to do so. I mean, Duke Tobin is a guy who deserves the credit. I think it was Ted Karras who made the comment that when he got to training camp with the Bengals, that he was looking around at the guys that you pretty much knew were going to be backup offensive linemen for this team. 2 of which are in the starting lineup now. Volson, you didn't know what was going to happen with him. He was a rookie, and he had a legitimate chance to start, and he won the job. He started every game. But, he was looking at guys like Sharping, Carmen, Adeniji, looking at these guys, and he's saying, this is the best, is basically in a nutshell, he was saying, this was the best group of players as far as depth and quality that he had ever been around on an NFL team during training camp. He's looking around and he's saying, that guy would have started for one of the teams I played for. That guy would have started on every team I've ever played for. And you're talking about a guy who's played on a lot of good teams. A lot. He's never lost in a championship game. 3-0 in championship games, both at New England and Tampa Bay. So, Duke Tobin, same thing in his secondary. Not only the players they acquired like Eli Apple, right, bringing in Awuzie, bringing in Mike Hilton as free agents, but then you look at the drafting. You just mentioned Cam Taylor-Britt. The Hill kid has done some good things. He's still young. He's not played as much as some of the other guys. They brought in Jesse Bates as a draft pick. They brought in Von Bell as a free agent. They bring in Hendrickson as a free agent. They make a trade for B.J. Hill. I announced a lot of games B.J. Hill played in the New York Giants. He's a good player. He's a really good player for the Bengals. Really good. They bring in Reeder as a free agent. This is all your scouting and your player personnel people. And they say, it's funny, because when the Bengals stunk 3 years ago, and look, they've had a lot of years where they've stunk, but when they stunk 3 years ago, all you heard about and read about was the Bengals have the fewest number of people in their scouting department compared to any other team in the NFL. By far the fewest. Spending the least amount of money of any team in the National Football League. I don't read anybody talking about that now. I don't read it. And it's not like they bulked up the scouting department, at least not to my knowledge. They asked their coaches, position coaches, to do that more than any other team in the National Football League. To evaluate players, and this is what we talk about all the time with coaches, how hard these guys work. It's mind-boggling, especially for a team like the Bengals, because they ask their position coaches to look at film and video, play-by-play stuff. Yeah, they lean on analytics and probably Pro Football Focus and whatever it might be to decide whether or not you're going to bring in this player as a free agent. So you go look at all these potential free agent players on film. Then you look at all these potential college kids coming out that you might want to draft. Not just the first rounder. I mean, most of that stuff's no-brainer stuff. Or the second round. But what about the fifth round? What about the sixth round? What about Volson? Right?
Right.
I don't read anybody being critical now of the Bengals player personnel department and scouting.
Yeah, and the one thing that I used to be on the opposite end of this, I used to complain about it a lot, but as of late, when you really look at the Bengals, even in the last, like since the 2000s probably, they hit more than they haven't hit on players.
Yep.
And the coaching staff is the one guy that's going to know for sure if that's the guy that you want or not on your team. A scout, they're gauging maybe based off of scheme, but maybe not based off of performance or based off of measurables. And those are the things that clearly Lou Anarumo, I mean, at the beginning, he didn't have his guys. Our defense was really, really bad.
Yep.
And
same with Zach Taylor.
And slowly over time, when they started adding and plugging in their guys, their system guys, their players that we thought, wow, why did we pick here for that? Well, we picked a bunch of linebackers one year, and then we picked a bunch of secondary guys this year. And look where it's gotten us. We're in a better spot than we've ever been. One more game away from another Super Bowl, second in a row. And it's really credit to that philosophy, I think. I think that thinking has really helped turn the Bengals around.
Well, look, in any sport, you have to have your core of stars. And in football, it starts at the quarterback. The Bengals were terrible 3 years ago. They were so bad, it earned them the first pick in the draft. All right? So they hit the lottery by being crummy. They did. And we all agree universally that even during the Marvin years, and again, Duke Tobin was there in that role then. He's gotten an elevation as far as a title is concerned. But him and Marvin were doing that whole thing. Marvin was a great talent evaluator. Couldn't win a big game. He's a 500 coach. But he could evaluate and still can evaluate talent. But they hit the lottery with Burrow, right? They hit the lottery with Chase, okay? And then they decided for the first time in the history of the franchise they were going to start spending money. That's where it all changed. The whole thing changed with the core, right? You had Boyd here already, good player. Second-round pick, how in the world, T. Higgins? It's a shame on every team in the NFL for how that guy slips to the second round in the draft. Mind-boggling. Yep. Wasn't like he was some, extra piece here at Clemson. This guy was a stallion.
Yep.
Stud. Big-time teams, big-time games, right? How he slipped to the second, I don't know, but the Bengals took him in the second round, right? So now you start to get that core. But then when they spent the money, it all changed. Burrow, Chase, spent the money on the defense with free agents. Because by and large, you look at this entire team right now, if Awuzie was here, this entire team, the overwhelming majority of this defense are free agent players, right? The impact guys, okay? Reeder, Hendrickson, Hill, these are in trades, okay? You drafted Hubbard, so that's on this side. You drafted Logan Wilson, right?
Yep.
Okay. But then you bring in Hilton. You bring in Apple. You bring in Awuzie. You bring in Von Bell. Okay, over here you still have Jesse Bates. So that changed. You were good enough last year with a terrible offensive line to get to the Super Bowl. So what did they do? They went out and they spent it this year. They are a far better team this year than they were last year.
Agreed.
No question about it. They are a better – now, does that mean they win Sunday? No, it doesn't, because you just don't know what's going to happen once you get on the field.
Yeah.
And it looks like it's probably looking like – I mean, based on, the tone, watching that Zach Taylor press conference yesterday, Williams and Cap aren't coming back for this game.
I mean, I think they should rest them and make sure that they're 100% for the Super Bowl. But
I love it.
I think the other thing people don't realize, too, with that discussion about the scouting department is that they're also responsible for scouting and talent evaluation of free agent players. So they've done an excellent job as of late in the last 3 years of getting guys that they thought that they could win with and guys that they can really gel. I mean, this locker room chemistry has never been any better.
Yep.
and everyone's got their back. There's no griping. There's no bad blood at all. It will really be a test here soon when we don't have a lot of money, when we have to hit on the draft again, how well we perform in that area. To me, I feel like we've been hitting very well. Maybe not like we can't really grade this draft right now, but if we had to, I would give it a B+. I mean, CTB, I mean, he's a big reason why we're here right now. I mean, could you imagine if we had Eli Apple and some guy from the free agency? Like, I can't even remember who our third guy was last year. He's been that big of an impact that, you know, next year I feel comfortable with him being at the number 2 spot, whereas, you know, we had question marks there. I mean, this team has rounded out so well. There's so many positions that have just been covered that we're sitting here talking about a third pass rusher and maybe a potential tight end when we have Hayden Hurst. And we could potentially
Well, look, you
resign
can't
him.
keep them all. It's been documented, okay? Yeah, I mean, somebody's going to have to draw the line in the sand. And look, people don't like talking about it. Hell, I don't like talking about it because you still got games left to play this year. Huge games, the biggest games. Championship game, potential Super Bowl game. But somebody's going to have to draw the line in the sand down there, whether it's Katie Blackburn, or Mike Brown, or Duke Tobin, or whoever, Troy Blackburn, makes the decisions on the contracts, and you've got your people in there about the salary cap, and we know about Burrow is going to be paid higher than any quarterback in the history of the game, any player in the history of the game. That's a fact. He's going to make more money than Mahomes. But all these guys you're talking about now, you know, sooner or later, you're going to have to draw the line in the sand. Eli Apple, been a good player. You want to pay him? He's making $4 million this year. You want to pay him 8 or 12 next year? I don't think so. Logan Wilson, no chance. I'll go find a linebacker that can play well for me.
Right.
I'll go find that guy.
There definitely
You know, and
will be.
then you start getting into the really big guys. Now you start getting into Boyd, and you start getting into Jesse Bates. I think it's a foregone conclusion. He probably doesn't come back here next year. Well, now you got to replace him, and you got to replace a guy who's replacing him. Right? Now, Cincinnati, it's pointed out in the chat, it's a great point. Cincinnati is becoming a destination where before nobody wanted to play here. Nobody. Almost on the single sole reason that you didn't have an indoor practice facility. And that's not a joke. I mean, look, these players, nobody likes running around outside when it's 10 degrees for 3 months or 20 degrees for 3 months and practicing outside. Players do not like it. You know, their facility down there, you know, for a long, long time, it was an embarrassment. They've upgraded all of that stuff, and now people watch the Bengals and the atmosphere at Paycor, and it's a place you want to be. But at what price? Something's got to give, right?
Yeah. And I mean, I think they'll – sorry, do you want to say something?
No, go ahead.
They will have hard decisions here in the near future to make, but I have faith in this staff that they will make the right choices. And for some of those players that you listed, like Eli Apple, I thought he deserved that contract last year. But because of the way that the Super Bowl kind of went down and, you know, you give up 3 catches, but that just happens to be against one of the best receivers in all of football, and both of them are for touchdowns. I mean, that's a tough spot to be in. I think that I hope he finds a good contract in the near future, just kind of getting back on point with Eli Apple. But I won't be surprised. This Bengals defense is underrated, and it's always been like that. These players that play so well for us, they might not get top money. And if they don't get top money, why would they go anywhere but back to Cincinnati?
At the end of the day, Casey, I've asked myself that same question for 30-something years about, you know, and the comments made, I'm trying to remember who it was yesterday, made the comment about, you know, walking out on the field in Buffalo and all the orange and talking about the relationship between the fans and the city and this team and all those kinds of – and I would always say to myself, well, you know, if I could make $7 million over there, and I really don't know the coaches, and I don't know the players, and the new scheme, and all that kind of thing, and but I can make 5.5 here and stay here, and I like it here. My family likes it here, and I know the coaches, although some might get hired as head coaches, but I know the coaches, I know the organization, I know the fans. Maybe I'll take the 5.7 instead of the 7. Negative. That's that old adage about money talks and you know what walks. If Hayden Hurst is offered, and I'm picking him randomly, I don't know him, so maybe he would be the exception to the rule, but he's a perfect example. He's had an outstanding year. Everybody loves this guy. I mean, everybody loves this guy. His teammates, the fans, everybody. But if Hayden Hurst gets offered $8 or $9 million to go play somewhere else next year, and he gets offered 5 or 6 or 7 here, he's going for 8 or 9.
Yeah,
Paul, you were getting ready to say something.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say something tangential to all of this about Zach Taylor. I think that this front office deserves a lot of credit for not giving up on Zach Taylor after he started 6-25-1 in his first 2 years, because there are a lot of teams. Look at the Broncos this year, and this is not, let me make this very clear. This is not to stump for Nathaniel Hackett. But there are a lot of teams that would have pulled the cord on Zach Taylor after 2 years, which in the NFL at times can be a decent enough sample size to figure out, maybe this guy doesn't know what's going on here. But this front office had the foresight to know that they hired an offensive-minded head coach, and more specifically, a quarterback-minded head coach. He was quarterback's coach out there with Sean McDermott Sean McVay in L.A. They hire a quarterback coach. He doesn't have his guy. They want to get him his guy. They don't give up on him after going through the depths of hell in the first 2 years of his tenure. They get him his guy, and then not only do they get him his guy, they get his guy weapons to even be more of his guy.
Yep.
And now all of a sudden, look at what he's done with people calling for him to be an NFL Coach of the Year and somebody coaching circles around the entire staff of Sean McDermott and the Buffalo Bills, who forever now this year people had crowned as the preseason Super Bowl champion. So I think that this front office deserves a lot of credit. And I know I haven't hit the button yet for you, Thom, on Zach Taylor, but I'm pretty close. And I think that this is a great spot for the Bengals to be in with a coaching staff that has been intact. You can see what Lou Anarumo has done. You can see what Brian Callahan's done, what Frank Pollock's done with the offensive line and getting some of his guys that he's needed to be more successful this year. It's just a credit and a testament to the patience that you have to have in such an impatient society.
Okay, and
right now.
Where does that patience begin? It begins in ownership.
Yes.
Okay, now there is, everything you said is spot on. I would make the argument that they were too patient with other people, starting with Marvin Lewis.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, look, I've said it before, I've said it again. The Bengals were the biggest embarrassment as a franchise in professional sports when Marvin Lewis took this job. He cleaned up so many messes that most of us will never know about. Okay? And he turned this into a roster. I remember like it was yesterday. Those years the Bengals were getting beaten in the playoffs in the first round. I talked to guys like Pete Carroll and talked to some of these guys as I'm going around the league, and they're talking about the Bengals roster. They're like, Bengals have the best roster in the NFL. Best roster in the NFL. Top to bottom. And they couldn't win a playoff game. Now, inside the chat, okay, David brings up a very interesting question. It's a fair question. But, David, I think you need to open your mind a little bit, too. He says, what on God's green earth makes you think this management team will be able to sustain this success? They're not the Steelers or the Chiefs, and definitely not the Patriots. David, okay, spot on. They're not the Steelers. They're not the Patriots. They're not the Chiefs. But in the last few years, they have shown you signs that it's a management team that has changed its thinking. You have to start somewhere. My dear friend, the late, great Harry Carey used to say all the time, and it sounds ridiculous, but it's true. You can't win 4 in a row until you win 3 in a row. Duh. But look, with the Bengals, instead of going back over the long history of it, let's just start with Joe Burrow's arrival and let's see what happens now moving forward. Okay? It's a second straight year. He's been healthy. They've protected him. And it's a second straight year they've played in the AFC Championship game. When's the last time the Steelers played in a championship game? When's the last time? I'm not talking about what they did 8 years ago. When's the last time Tomlin won a playoff game?
It's been a while.
I love Tomlin. Never had a losing record. One of my favorite coaches in the league. But let's not get carried away here. The Chiefs, I mean, look, 1,000 years ago, won Super Bowls. All right? They had Alex Smith. They brought him in. They were a team good enough to get to the playoffs just to get their tails kicked. They bring in Andy Reid. They luck into Patrick Mahomes, just like the Bengals lucked into Joe Burrow. Now, all of a sudden, they played in 5 straight championship games. Would you agree that in the last 3 years, okay, let's say last 2 years, the Bengals roster is a better roster than the Kansas City Chiefs? It's completely undeniable without a doubt, right? And the Chiefs have taken steps backwards. Tyreek Hill walks out the door, right? No, I'm not blaming them for letting him walk out the door. They didn't want to pay him, but they paid him fine. But all you can do is start somewhere and say, okay, maybe the ownership, not maybe, they changed their mind. They spent money on the defense 1 year. They spent money on the offensive line the next year. And here we are in Cincinnati playing in a second straight AFC championship game. Do I think this management team, based on history? No. But based on recent history, I think there's a chance they can sustain it, especially knowing that the quarterback is going to be here, and good Lord willing, he's healthy. Ham and Eggers, take it away. No Zim again today. I just wrote him.
No Zim.
I mean,
Where
I don't
is
know.
the man?
I have no idea. Take it away.
Zim Hude.
It's that time of the show, the Ham and Eggers. These guys are great. Trust me, I would know. I introduce all the best segments.
Well,
50% blockage there. What's up?
We did not hit the KC parlay.
Yeah, so what's the status of Casey McAllister? So Brandon Seho's going. Brandon Seho is going to Kansas City, and he is going to the game, which means we're going to need a Skyline Chili greater than sign barbecue sign. That's what we're going to see.
That's tough.
I mean, are you for the brand or are you against the brand? Are you genuine or are you a fraud?
Well,
That's the question. I'm going to let you answer that internally, Brandon.
What about Andy Reid mustache, my mustache?
Well,
Greater than
all right, your mustache is greater than Andy Reid's mustache. All right, we
We'll
can
see
work
about
with that.
that. We'll
All
see
right,
about that.
the Houday stash greater than sign. All right, Casey, what are we doing about you getting you out there to Kansas City?
Well, yesterday I was just one team away from covering to get 200, which would then get me in a pretty good spot. I would just need to win, a couple hundred here.
In position to be in position.
Yes, in the catbird seat. But now, just the Celtics, man, they killed me last night.
Yeah, Celtics did not come through last night.
I mean,
good.
I did some research, and the Magic, they're something else at home right now this season. They're like 15-6 covering the spread.
Casey,
so.
I appreciate how hard you work on the NBA. You
I-
might work as hard on the NBA as I work on college basketball. You put in the time.
I put in some time and effort to it.
I walk out there yesterday and I just see you grinding away on the stats, scrolling spreadsheets. And I'm not even trying to mess with you. I'm serious.
No, I mean, like I I won't lie. I do use some outside sources to help me configure the parlays, but a lot of the parlays that these betting sites give you, they take a player that's like their sixth man and they expect him to make 2 or 3 threes in the game.
Sure.
And he just did that last week or like last game, and it's like he's not going to do it again. Like some of the eventually the trends have to stop, right?
Yeah.
And that is the key, is to finding that and to figure out where those trends stop. And I do a lot of research into trying to find that out, and sometimes I hit and sometimes I don't. I've been kind of cold as of late. But the problem is this week I'm probably only going to be betting spreads.
There we go.
Just because I want to save some money, and I'm only trying to hit on games. And I picked 4 games last week, or just last Monday. Didn't hit on all of them. I hit on 3 of them. Baylor, Northwestern, which, what a game Northwestern was.
Yeah.
And
that was a fun game. Yeah.
I was fooled. I was watching it on the ESPN app, and it apparently did not end at 66-62.
No. It did not. Tom, we got somebody in here for you.
Who's that?
Look at this.
Oh my God. He is
here.
alive.
He's here.
He's alive.
He's here. Look at this man.
Tom is mad at me, guys.
You're living on Twitter. You're trolling all the. Now that you're back and you're activated, the whole 9 yards. But it's good to have you back, my man.
I don't know how to act. Ever since they gave me my Twitter back, I just get caught up in these scrums, and everybody's just pulling me and like, get over here, Zim. And all I'm doing is posting good content. And then all of a sudden, it's like all these Patricia fans. These Patricia Mahomes fans, they're just like, no, like, get over here. And, like, they just don't want to hear about the greatness of Joe Burrow. And I don't get it. I don't understand. If Patricia is who y'all saying he is, how come that they'll do everything in their power to try to give you diversion tactics and be like, oh, yeah, the defense is so amazing. Yeah, that's cool. But let's talk about Joe Burrow. You know what I mean? But they don't want to do that, because they know that I'm a threat. They know that number 9 is coming, headed to Burrowhead. And this thing is, like, here we are. We're back where we left off. Same thing. I thought out there I packed these boys up 3 times. I thought it'd be a little bit more love for number 9. I'm sorry about that.
Zim, you look at the game the other day, my man, and you called it. I mean, I give you the credit. By the way, what the hell's wrong with your camera here? I mean, it looks
Zim, wipe your thumb over the camera.
Clean that thing up a little bit. You look too good. You're too handsome to have there you go. We're getting better there. Okay.
Is it better?
Yeah, you're better. You're better. All right.
My son be like using this thing.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. Believe me, I know. So, look, you were the guy that called it. Joe Mixon, your guy. I mean, you laid it out there. I was the one who suggested to you that maybe, your guy should be handing off some of those carries to Pirine. But Mixon, for my money, Mixon was the best player on the field on Sunday.
That's crazy. I hadn't thought about that. You feel like he was the best player on the field?
Dude, I just thought look, I mean, Burrow's always going to be the guy that gets this or gets that and all that. Yeah. But for me, I thought on Sunday, Mixon was the best player on the team for that game. 20 carries, over 100 yards. You could have given him the ball 35 times in that game, and he'd have run.
He was killing.
He was
liked that snow. He liked that snow, didn't he? You know what's so crazy? I just felt like, man, this team is so good. It's so good. It's so many game balls to give out. I hadn't thought about it like that. Of course, me and him talk about like how these are the different things that you can exploit. These are, he was really good. I thought the offensive line opened up some holes, though, that he normally doesn't get a chance to see, too.
Yep.
And I thought, like, even when you're looking forward to this matchup, think about this. For all the P. Ryan enthusiasts, I love it. I think that's a dope concept to really be behind a guy. Like I always say, every team needs a P. Ryan. Every team wants a Joe Mixon in my mind. Because even when I go back and look, I was watching that Chiefs game in December earlier. Man, there's some runs on there. If y'all think P. Ryan was going crazy on them, because remember, he ran for about 109 yards in that game. If they show Mixon those same looks, he could run for 152, like 180 or something like that. He has big playability, and I think a lot of people have two different styles of, how they view the running back position, and then they kind of subconsciously put the money conversation into it. Like, well, if I pay my guy $12 million, he needs to be, you know what I mean? Like you got those people too. So I just think that Mixon and P. Ryan are like a crazy duo. And in the NFL is leading to that. And I thought like Mixon has that big playability, and people saw it. If he gets the correct angle on you, I thought it started in the Saints game. There's a play like on the sideline. I think it's like their best linebacker and Demario Davis or something. He's got a one-on-one with him on the side. I mean, like, and then the dude just goes flying by. I said, oh, he's back. And I told Mixon that. I said, man, you're running at a high level and they just don't understand it yet. Then he started stacking some games up. And, I mean, our team is crazy like this too, because you can't just look at rushing stats. So many teams play us in cover two, or so many teams come to the game and say, well, we're going to stop the run and keep everything in front of us. But the extension of that is throwing the football, and P. Ryan and Mixon have more catches than Tyler Boyd. So, like, one thing that they don't talk about is, like, him catching out of the backfield. And I thought he murdered the Bills. Like, Matt Milano and them, like, with all due respect, I heard he was all pro. You mean to tell me there's only 3 linebackers in the league better than that dude? He made him look like he was a rookie out there. Like, so you're right. I hadn't thought about that. Like, Mixon was really good in that game.
All right, let me ask you this now. We move past Buffalo, even though, you are just continuing to disintegrate on Twitter. Every Buffalo fan I think that's ever lived. But now to Kansas City, okay? And here we go with, beat them 3 times in a calendar year, Burrowhead Stadium, all that kind of thing. I asked
you
Tim,
like that, don't you?
I love it. I asked Tim McGee this yesterday on the show. Zach Taylor made a comment, progressing as Jonah Williams, progressing as Alex Kappa. His tone and tenor to me, and I'm not getting Freudian here, but it sounded to me like they're not going to play. But even if they could play, even if you got them at, say, 75, 80%, after what I saw last week, Zim, I'd have a hard time making any changes on that offensive line that took the field in Buffalo. But this is a different cat now with Kansas City. I think we all agree statistically Buffalo is a better defense. But I would make the argument that Kansas City is a better pass rush. You agree or disagree?
I don't think about from my perspective, if I'm the Bengals, like think about the losses, and we talked about this earlier in the year on the show. The teams that beat us had Myles Garrett, Micah Parsons, and TJ Watt up front. And then the Ravens, who probably have, like, if not the best, like the top 3 defense in the NFL. You mean to tell me, like, Frank Clark and an aging Carlos Dunlap? Like, I just can't – I don't see it. I feel like – I thought the Bills' defensive line rotation of Boogie Basham, Esperanza, like, if you told me before the season, I thought that the Bills on paper had one of the best fronts in the NFL. In the walk out of that game, and Joe Burrow only takes like 1 sack for like 2 yards or whatever. I just don't see the depth, and I don't see everything with the Chiefs. Like, I know the sack numbers are there. I just can't see it. Like, after going through what we've gone through with this team, like, I mean, bro, you almost beat Aaron Donald, in a Super Bowl, like with Von Miller and Leonard Floyd. Frank Clark and Carlos Dunlap ain't moving me. I'm sorry.
What about Chris Jones? I mean, look, Buffalo didn't have Chris Jones.
Chris Jones, the last time we played him in December, the tape is disgusting. If I was a Chiefs fan, I wouldn't even want him on my team. He gave up on like 3 or 4 plays that I've outlined on my Twitter. He was a non-factor, didn't register a pressure or a sack. Doesn't even have a playoff sack to date. I think nothing of Chris Jones in this moment right now. I think he's a fine player, but when they needed him the most, we packed him up and we put him on a plane just like the rest of them, Tom.
But what was the word you used? What was it? Teaching
Seatbelt.
Thom today? Put a seatbelt on him, Zim. Teaching Thom, put a seatbelt.
Putting seatbelts on them boys. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, look, like it's do or die now. We're in the Final Four. You guys like NCAA and you watch college more than me. We in the Final Four. It's put up or shut up time. Like, you can't tell me the strength of, like, the weakness to me would be on the tackle positions for the offensive line. If that, right? The interior, I feel good about Teddy football. I feel good about what I saw from Max Sharpen. I think if Alex Kappa has a chance to play, maybe I play him. I think Jonah will hold out. I mean, we got a real conversation. I thought you were about to ask me, what if Jonah says he's ready to play? That's a real conversation. What do you think? Let me ask you this. What do you think? If Jonah said, yeah, I'm at 90-something% and I feel really good, do you start him over Jackson Carman?
You know what? I'm not. If you were talking about a Pro Bowl player, or you were talking about a guy who's had an outstanding season, absolutely. I'd put him back in there. But, look, I've said it once. I've said it 1,000 times on this show. I give Jonah Williams all the credit in the world. He dislocated his kneecap earlier this year. He did not miss a single game. He was back the next week. And I give it up to the guy. Guys like that I want on my team. But he's allowed 12 sacks. He has not had a great year. Jackson Carman gets his first start at left tackle in the NFL. It's where he played in college. I know it's only one game, so I don't want to go too crazy like a lot of people do. If the guy stinks for one game, you want to throw him in the ocean. If he's great for one game, you want to put him in the Hall of Fame. But I thought the guy played well enough where he ought to start this week, especially if he's at 100% and another guy's not at 100%. So, Zim, we got to let you run. You were late getting to us today, and you got to come back now later in the week so we can really break down your guy, Patrick Mahomes, and the Kansas City Chiefs.
Hey, look, they want to say Patrick Mahomes versus Burrow. It's Patrick Mahomes versus Ludini, Lou Anarumu. And I'm telling you right now, I like my chances. Ludini's cooking up something in the lab for Patricia right now as we speak, Tom. I'm telling you, I'm sorry. I'm very confident. I know that there's some viewers that be like, man, these guys are so cocky. No, I'm confident. I believe in what I've seen, and I trust my eyes. I think you're wearing some awesome glasses on. You see it.
These are called cheaters. These are old man glasses that I can pick up at, Walgreens for $8 or $9, Jim. So, they are what they are.
Well, hey, look, I think you're seeing what I'm seeing these days. Even when you take them off, I feel like how I had to wipe off the camera, I feel like your vision just got, like, everything just started opening up for you. I think you saying even the questions you just asked me, you were like, what about Chris Jones? You don't think Chris Jones could do that with me. I got number 9. You know what I know. We in savage mode now. It's do or die. You know what I know. You just got to ask those questions for the viewers. I know what you're on. You really got that, you got that dog in you. It's time to let it out. Roof. You know what I'm saying? You see how quick that was? Roof. You see what I'm saying? Sometimes you got to let that thing rough. It's time.
Zim, you're the man. You're the man. All right, we're coming back later in the week. We thank Zim Hude. Now,
Thanks, Zim.
does that guy not get you fired up? You wish the game was played right now. That's the man.
He is.
How about that Chris Jones take?
Oh, man. He came in and brought his A game today. And you know who else is bringing his A game today? Wait till you see what Doc is bringing to the table right now.
Really?
Fire him on up here, Casey.
All right, let's go. Paul Doherty, themorningline.substack.com.
I'll tell you what, if there's one person that has been bringing his A game to the table in the last couple of days, it's Doc.
Oh, my God. Look at this. Oh, my gosh. You talked about the glasses. Your son gave them to you. We asked you about the cigar. You didn't have it last week. You must have run down to UDF and picked up one of those cigars. Doc, you're looking good.
UDF.
When I go buy cigars, and I'll have them every now and again, I love sitting out by a fire pit, and I love drinking a few beers, maybe mix in a little whiskey in there, and love having a cigar. I'll just run right around the corner and pick one up at UDF. I'm not a big highfalutin guy like you are up there.
No, you don't have to be highfalutin to smoke a decent cigar. I mean, you're going around the corner and you're picking up some Swisher Sweets, are you?
No, not Swisher Sweets, but they have 2 or 3 other brands in there. They're good enough for me. I don't have them a lot, so they're good enough for me. But Doc, you brought your A game here. I mean, you are. I mean, every single week you remind me a lot of the Bengals ownership. You're just getting better as the years go by.
I learned at the feet of the masters.
Who would that be?
Mike Brown. Who do you think I'm talking about?
Well, I mean, I was just getting into it with one of the guys in our chat about, how in the world, what on God's green earth was his quote? What on God's green earth would make someone believe that this management team could keep this thing going? But as you call him, Inevitable Joe, when you start there and when you look what they've done in every other area the last 2 or 3 years, I think there are a lot of people, Doc, in this town, and look, you're right at the top of the list because you've been writing here 35-plus years. I would have never believed that the ownership and management team of this franchise could sustain this kind of success moving forward. Now I'd be stunned if they didn't.
Well, yeah, it really – it doesn't take much in the NFL, Tom. That sounds weird given how hard it is to win a Super Bowl, and the Bills know that firsthand. But you know what? You can be decent in a hurry in this league if you get the right quarterback and you make a few smart moves. I mean, look at Jacksonville. Jacksonville got the right quarterback, is starting to build around him. They were competitive with the team that's supposed to win the Super Bowl this year last week. So the Bengals got the right quarterback. He's a generational talent. It's interesting now that all these people 4 to 6 weeks ago who couldn't put Joe Burrow in the same sentence with Tua Tagovailoa in terms of MVP consideration now are using words like Tom Brady and Joe Montana in connection with Joe Burrow. But that said, they got the right quarterback. Mike Brown has loosed the reins, as everybody knows. They've made some very good signings. They've drafted well, and they have a very good coaching staff. And I'll be the first to admit, when they hired Lou Anarumo, first of all, I had to look him up. I had never heard of Lou Anarumo. And second of all, I thought, this guy's never been a coordinator in this league. Not even close. What does he know about coordinating a defense? Well, they were smart. They have had so few whiffs, Tom, from top to bottom in the last 3 years. It's incredible. They've done a great job by anybody's standards. And by old Bengals standards, it's beyond incredible.
When you go back and look at the game on Sunday, Doc, and we talked a little bit about it with Tim McGee last week, I thought the Bengals would go in there and win the game. With all the questions on the offensive line, and you and I discussed this a couple times last week, I had no idea we were going to be looking at just a complete and thorough domination in that game. I still can't. That could have easily been a 42-10 game.
Sure, it could have. I picked the Bills to win by a point. I looked at that offensive line. I looked at all the intangible stuff that the Bills should have had going for them, and I thought, this is going to be Buffalo's game. I whiffed. A lot of people whiffed. The inevitable Joe Burrow did it again. I mean, as hard as it is for people to believe who haven't watched him every week, he's actually gotten better this year as the year's gone along. And the other day, the first 2 drives were perfect. I mean, they were perfect. You can't say that about any team in the NFL. You can say that about the way they played in the first quarter. And that said, conversely, Buffalo looked just kind of disinterested. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I mean, when games like that happen, you kind of walk the line between, one team's really good or the other team really stinks. To which I would say yes on both counts. Buffalo simply was not prepared to play, and I don't know. They'll have to dig deep and figure out why that is. But Burrow moved up another notch in the quarterback rankings. He leapfrogged Josh Allen. You'd like to think that nobody will be talking about Josh Allen in the same sentence ahead of Joe Burrow, but who knows? Not that that even matters. But the Bengals played great. The Bills played like they just wanted the season to be over.
We'll wait until later in the week to have you back to talk about the Kansas City game a little bit, and your thoughts as that gets closer and we learn more about Mahomes, whatever it might be. But it doesn't it just feel, and Tim McGee said to us yesterday, he said, this is something that actually worries him a little bit. When I made the comment that, whether it was Mahomes getting his ankle rolled up on, the Bengals had beaten Kansas City 3 times in a calendar year, the whole chip on their shoulder, the way the Bengals are playing right now, the way they looked on Sunday, it just feels like all the momentum in this game, all the momentum is leading to the Bengals getting back to the Super Bowl. Not saying it's going to happen. It just has that feeling, Doc, like they look like a Super Bowl championship team.
Yeah, they do, but how much do you trust any of that stuff in the NFL?
That's true.
How many times have we sat there on Sunday morning picking our little office pool thing and saying, this team really has it going on. And then they prove that that's kind of a fleeting thing. I wrote this a couple times earlier in the year, and I think it's true in the playoffs, maybe more so. The NFL season is nothing but a bunch of 17 one-act plays. What you did the week before or the month before has zero bearing on what you're going to do this week. So that said, can you trust that sort of inevitability when it comes to this team finally winning a Super Bowl? I don't think so. I trust players making plays, and players are human beings, and you don't know how they're going to play. I mean, you look at this game, and again, like I did with Buffalo, the Bengals seem to have most of the intangibles and a lot of the tangibles. The first one being Patrick Mahomes can't run. That's a fairly big intangible in this game. But I don't know. Yeah, I agree with you. It sure looks like the Bengals have the look of a Super Bowl team, a Super Bowl champion. But bettors who go on looks don't make any money. The touts love those people.
Last thing I want to ask you about, in the monologue a couple weeks ago, I made the argument that I've always thought in growing up here, moving away for 20 years, moving back, that I had always thought that Cincinnati, in my opinion, was without question a football town. Now, I don't put any stock on how many likes or all that kind of thing you get in social media when you post those kinds of things. They don't mean anything to me. But I just look at right now this relationship between this city and this football team. I've always said Cincinnati was a football town, not a baseball town. And I used reference to the days of the Big Red Machine even when they had the best team arguably of all time, they never drew more than 2.6 million fans in a single season. And this Bengals saying, you can't get a ticket to a Bengal game anymore. You can't get near. And I know it's only once a week compared to 81 home days, no question. But this relationship right now, Doc, I think it's filtering all the way down into the actual players themselves. And looking in the stands in Buffalo and commenting after the game, I cannot believe how many people are here in orange. And when they come back and Zach Taylor's giving game balls and bars and, it's Sam Weish-esque and a different kind of thing. I just find the whole thing mind-boggling compared to where this franchise has been for most of the time that you and I have ever set foot in this town.
Well, yeah. And I've said this forever. I've been here since '88. I don't recall until maybe these past 2 years in this entire town the feeling that the town had for the team the way the town had for the '88 team. I was not here for the other Super Bowl, the '82, but I was here for the '88. It was my first year here. The town was electric. I think it's back to being that now. The Reds have never done that. Not for me anyway. I think the Reds suffer from the fact that this is a football country now. It is not a baseball country. It hasn't been for a long time. People have kids who are 20 years old who have never heard of the Big Red Machine. And I wouldn't say never heard, but it's not ingrained in them the way the Bengals are. The Reds are the Big Red Machine and Pete Rose in 1990. That was 30 years ago, at least. The Bengals are now. I think that makes a big difference. I don't know whether this is a football or a baseball town. I think it's a good sports town, but like any other sports town, it supports winners. It wants to feel as if its teams are giving their best effort, just as the fans feel they're giving the teams their best effort. So football, baseball, I don't know, but I know football is happening nationally. Baseball is not happening nationally, and the Reds are not happening locally either at the moment.
All right, last question I want to ask you about. The Hall of Fame baseball ballot is released today. You've written about Scott Rowland. It's very interesting in stuff that you've written on the morningline.substack.com. Other writers today around the country writing about the prospects of Rowland, Billy Wagner, Todd Helton, Carlos Beltran. You think Rowland gets in? It's interesting, but before I ask you that question to answer it, I read today that he was polling in a day and age where everything's about polling. That's 79%. You need to get to 75%. But then last year, he was polling up around this same number, but then had a huge drop-off when the actual ballots came in. Do you think Scott Rowland gets in the Hall of Fame tonight?
If he doesn't get in this year, he'll get in next. It's going to be very close. You're right. I think the differential has traditionally been like 5% drop-off from what the polling is right before the election and from what the results are. I don't know why that is. Then again, I don't know why a guy after 8 ballots is suddenly a Hall of Famer where on ballot number 1 he was not. I've never quite understood that thinking. And I'm a voter. I don't know. It's going to be very close. But like I said, Tom, he's still got eligibility left, and he's got quite a lot of momentum. I don't see him backsliding from whatever it's going to be, 73, 74, 75. So I think he gets in whether he makes it this year or not. And frankly, I think he deserves it. I've come to appreciate more as I've looked deeper into his numbers and had the pleasure of watching him play here and talking to him here. And that made a big impression on me. I've never seen one single baseball player turn a team around, turn an attitude into the right direction the way Scott Rowland did here when the Reds brought him in.
All right, Doc. Well, we will catch up later in the week. Look, you brought your A game. The only thing missing now is you might have to do on Thursday or Friday, whenever it's convenient for you to join us to make your prediction for the Chiefs game, is if it's warm enough to step outside, and you got to fire that thing up.
You know what? I might have to make a sacrifice for the good of the town. You know what I mean? I think it's that important that I should go outside and freeze my butt off for the sake of Cincinnati Bengals fans.
I agree. I mean, you've come with the glasses. You brought the cigar. You've got that beautiful setting now around you with pictures of the Masters in the background. And, I mean, there's 2 more steps to go. You light that thing up, and then a Super Bowl.
Proper attire next,
Your attire is just fine. There are no attire requirements on the show. None.
Yeah, you know what? I don't want to get I don't want to be a clown like the TV people. There's people who wear orange and black striped blazers when they're doing the weather. Yeah, I don't want to do that.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, no one's going to ask you to do that on this show. Whatever attire you're
comfortable in.
You know what else I won't
do? You know what else I won't do, Tom? I promise not to throw my Chad Johnson jersey in the garbage can if the Bengals don't win on Sunday. I'm not Skip Bayless.
No, you're not. That is for sure. And we're glad about that. Doc, thank you for your time today, my friend. Have a great rest of your day.
All right, brother. Take it easy.
That's themorningline.substack.com. How about Doc bringing a cigar?
Zim and Doc back to back. Boom.
Love it.
Yeah, and you know where we're going in about 14 minutes from now. I'm not sure if we're taking a step up or going right in the tank.
It's the greatest 30 minutes of television.
I got to tell you the one guy, and I'm not going to spend any time or much time on baseball. We will with Tracy a little bit. But, Doc brought up a great point about this thing about, why is a guy good enough to go in when it's his 8th time on the ballot as opposed to his 1st or 2nd night? Now, look, first time, it's a really big deal for the voters. Doc's one of them. Baseball writers of all ages, okay? They're the only ones that vote. No broadcasters, no baseball people till you go to the Veterans Committee. So it's only the writers. It's very important to them historically to only put certain guys in on the first ballot. And I can appreciate that. I think that makes a statement that there are some guys that are just up here. Johnny Bench, Tom Seaver, Babe Ruth, go on and on and on. Willie Mays, Hank Aaron, all of them, okay? There are guys that go in on the first ballot. And then if a guy goes into second, you're saying Hall of Fame player, no doubt, but just not first ballot Hall of Fame. But I got to tell you, and I'm going to put aside all of the guys in the quote-unquote steroid era. And everybody's entitled to their opinion on that. The Barry Bonds, the Roger Clemens, the Sammy Sosas, all those guys of the world. Mark McGuire. None of them are in. But the one guy that's up on the ballot, and this is his last year of being on the ballot. And I have to tell you, I watched the guy play minimum 25 to 35 times a year back when I was doing the Diamondbacks games and doing the Fox Saturday game of the week, almost exclusively the West Coast Fox Saturday game of the week. You think about the number of second basemen that are in the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. And I don't know off the top of my head how many of them there are. But here's what I know. Jeff Kent has more home runs than any of them. Ever. He has the 3rd most runs batted in of any of them. Ever. And Jeff Kent is down to his last shot at getting voted in by the writers to be a Baseball Hall of Famer. I did not like Jeff Kent as a guy. I've told the story many times about he and I getting into it, going toe-to-toe, talking about topic A, topic B. Never any yelling and screaming. But he was a surly, oftentimes nasty guy. Not a bad guy. Good husband, good dad, good family, all those things can be said about Jeff Kent. Nobody's perfect, but the only reason the baseball writers, and this is the problem I have with the baseball writers, the only reason they would not put him in and have not put him in the Hall of Fame is because they didn't like him as a guy. And that is shameful. It is absolutely shameful. You're talking about a guy just like all the rest of those major league players, and I don't care if they're Hall of Famers or guys that's the last guy on the roster. This guy busted his ass day in and day out forever. Start of his career, his surliness rubbed people the wrong way with the Mets, rubbed people the wrong way in Toronto. He gets to San Francisco. He had gone to Cal Berkeley out there to college, and he was a great offensive player. League MVP, played on the same teams as Bonds, didn't like Bonds. Bonds didn't like him. They won a ton of games. They got to World Series. This guy is one of the best second basemen to ever play the game. And I can't wait to see what his turnout is going to be. He's not going to make it. Not going to make it. And just because writers didn't like him as a guy. And you know what? I would bet the ranch, because Jeff Kent has been gone for a while now. Okay, he's been gone over a decade and a half, right? This is his final year on the ballot. You get so many years, you got to get a certain percentage, then you're kicked off to the Veterans Committee. Okay? So a lot of these guys that are voting never met Jeff Kent. They just heard a story from another guy or read an article about him or whatever it might be. They never met him. They never covered him. And we might even be at a point where half the guys that are voting as writers now never even saw him play. And those are the guys that are deciding if Jeff Kent should be in the Hall of Fame? I mean, come on. Come on. Come on. Jeff Kent is a Hall of Famer. And unfortunately for him, he's probably not going to get that phone call that tells him tonight at 6 o'clock Eastern time that he is a Hall of Famer. All right, let's see what's going on in the chat here. Go ahead, Paul, please.
I got something way out of left field that I'm just going to throw in here because we have about 5 minutes before Tracy gets in here. This is just something fun I've been thinking about, and I talked about it with the guys outside a little bit ago. Do you think, Tom and Casey, that Cincinnati, and I'll leave this to the chat too, does Cincinnati have the best collective group of stadium and arena names of any city in the country?
Well,
Great American Ballpark.
The baseball stadium is the best there is in all pro sports.
Great American Ballpark is the best name for any venue in the country.
No doubt.
There's no doubt about that. I love Paycor. I think Paycor is a strong name. Fifth Third.
Wait a minute. I mean, nothing against Paycor, but
the core. The core. I think the core. I think that's a good nickname for a stadium.
Term before. The core. People call it the core.
You going down to the core.
Going down to the core.
I've never heard that.
It's new.
I got buddies all over my neighborhood that have season tickets. I've never heard them call it the core.
I mean, it's only
Maybe
the first
it's
season.
Thing.
It's a first season. It's not like it's been around forever.
I've heard of it. I got your back on that.
It's the first
season.
season.
Casey, had never heard of that till he told you that.
No.
You guys, neither one of you have ever said the core on this show.
Paycor is a better name than Paul Brown was. Nothing to take away from Paul Brown, but Paycor is a better name than Paul Brown was.
Keep going. That's not even like the
Fifth Third. I think Fifth Third is a good name. It kind of rolls off the tongue. Cintas is a great name. The Toss, that's a great name. The only one that holds it back.
These are corporate America companies.
But they're good. But they're better than. Yes, but they're better than
Cintas. I'll give you because it has, Cincinnati is part of the. I'll give you that one.
But if you think of all these other corporate names that. All of a sudden, Cincinnati lucks out with Great American as a corporate name. Paycor is a corporate name. If you're going with corporate names and naming stadiums, Cincinnati's got a good collective group of arenas and stadiums. The only one that holds it back is Heritage Bank, but that arena's got its own issues.
And don't forget TQL.
And TQL, yeah.
Am I missing something here, Brandon?
No.
I mean...
No, we're just saying
every stadium in the country has a corporate name on it.
Right,
but
what the hell is the difference between Fifth Third Arena that makes it any better? Nothing against Fifth Third, Cincinnati-based bank, legendary status, billions of dollars managed. What's the difference between that and Heinz Field?
Well, we're talking about the collected stadiums
well, no,
in
but
an
this
area.
is part of that collection. I'm asking you, what is it? You guys just dispelled Heritage Bank. What's the difference between Heritage Bank Arena and Fifth Third Arena?
Too many syllables.
Well, I don't know.
Doesn't roll off the tongue.
It's just not as like you say it and it's easy to say and it's catchy.
That's
TQL is easy to say and it's catchy.
You guys live in this town and you say it every day.
But
if you lived in Pittsburgh and you said Heinz Field
but it's not Heinz Field
every
anymore.
day.
It's not Heinz Field anymore.
I know that.
Acrisure.
I know that.
It's terrible.
And that's a shame. Now, that's a good example of a good one versus a bad one. Okay. Yeah. But like the one in Cleveland, First Energy. Now, that is a great name. Isn't that still the name of the stadium?
Yeah.
That's a great name.
And we're not arguing that. We're arguing that Cincinnati has the best collection.
Collective. Yeah, Soldier Field is an awesome name in Chicago. Chicago's got a good group. United Center. United's great. It's a good group. The chat's popping off. I knew it would.
Oh, my God.
I knew it would.
Andrew, did you and Paul actually think that I don't know it's not Heinz Field anymore? This isn't a teaching Thom moment in this case.
Well, I didn't say that. Oh, you're talking about Paul in the chat.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was going to say I didn't. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we got Tracy Jones.
Arrowhead's a great name.
That's a great name.
Arrowhead's a great name. It won off stadiums. Arrowhead's a great name. Great American Ballpark's the best name in sports, though.
Okay. All right, time for the Tracer. Best 30 minutes of television twice a week. Tracy Jones, good morning. You're all fired up today. You want to get right into something, please do.
I do. I got two great stadium names, Enron and FDX. I just listening. How about those names?
Is that a seltzer you're drinking, Tracy?
You know what? Here's the deal. This is not a seltzer. This is an energy drink. When you see me drink one of these, that means I got my game on, because I have to go down to Covington Police Department. There's someone parking in my parking spot for my tenants. They've been there for a couple weeks. They're on and off. I put a nice little note on their car, and I got to go talk to the police. What are my rights? How do I go about getting them towed? This is a big deal. And I'm in a neighborhood, let's just say that's really, I got to watch myself. I'm 62. I'm not a badass anymore. So I got to slow play this. What would you guys do in a situation like that? Would you just go ahead and have it towed? Should you talk to the cops?
Well, you know, I'm surprised you spent so much time lately in California. I'm surprised you just didn't do what they do and just smash the windshield in.
I'm not going to tell you what I
did. I'm not endorsing that.
Right. Well, violence is always a solution for me, Thom. So I got to talk to the cops, and I got 120 grams of caffeine. So I'm going to be a little on edge, and you know what that means. You never know what's going to come out of this mouth.
You know, I thought of you the other day. I was scanning through some different publications and some articles. And something, of course, I mean, you know, you being, I think we all agree, right on the cutting edge of thinking and open-mindedness and willing to grow and to learn. This article was about all the rage now, which you started doing, I don't know how many weeks, if not months ago, about this cold tub thing. Are you still doing that? Are you feeling any effects of that? It was an interesting article about the health benefits of that.
Yeah, it's not every day, but if I feel like I need it, I will jump in for a cold shower, ice cold shower for 5 minutes. Thom, I'm thinking about doing the bathtub because I think that would be even better.
Well, that's what I read about. That's what I read about, and I remember, you know, if you pay attention to, I remember I was up at an Ohio State practice years ago when Urban Meyer was still the coach, and he's not the first one to do it. A lot of colleges do it, NFL teams. But I mean, there are at Ohio State's practice facility when they're working out in August, getting ready for the season. There are a dozen of these enormous pools out there, filled with ice, filled with water. They're going twice a day, and the guys walk right off the field. They strip down to their underwear, and they jump in there for 5 minutes, and I read it's the tub more than the shower.
See, that's fine, but it's in August, it's hot. But try to do it when you wake up in the morning. And I don't know about you, Tom, but I sleep naked. Give you guys a visual. So I go straight into the shower naked. So I'm already a little cold.
You can't even keep a straight face when you sing.
My wife sleeps with the door open last night, if you can believe that. Hey, I've got something, since we're talking about health, something that I'm into is alkaline water. I've got to do some research. I've been doing a little research. My wife is a big believer in that. We drove all the way to Dayton to get alkaline water. And I tell you, Tom, I've been drinking it for about a week. I feel a difference.
Well, I mean, you know, we've talked about it on this show with Pawnee, who they're making this stuff right across the street, and they're using it where you have no artificial filtration.
Yes.
And these guys, what they're doing is fantastic. We're thankful they're with us. And they're trying to get into more and more stores in and around the area. And so, you know, I think you're onto something here. And they brag about that, and they should. They should brag about
it. And let me say something about the sponsor. They're onto something, okay? And yeah. I hope they're listening. I really hope they're listening. I will not drink water out of the faucet, first of all. And I measure the water. Danae actually has a measuring device that measures how many chemicals or particles are in the water. To have fresh water is an absolute must. Please do not drink out of the tap. That's bad water. So those guys are way ahead of the times. Because in California, that's all they are is bottled water. But that alkaline's going to be interesting too, and I bet those guys go to it.
Could you explain to me something very briefly about California? If it's all about bottled water, which comes in a plastic bottle, right, by and large, right?
Right.
But you can't use a plastic straw in California. Could someone explain the logic of that to me? It's okay to have a bottle this size of water, but you can't put a straw in it because you can't get a straw there.
That's exactly, well, you know a lot about, you've been a lot of places. They're so hypocritical there. I'll tell you what they do in California, talking about plastic. They charge you 10 cents for a plastic bag to bag
I'm well aware.
Right? I tell you, that place is sinking fast. I actually saw two girls when I was in Ventura on the beach jogging. They were about 28, you know, one of those millennials or whatever they're called. I don't even know what generation. Wearing a mask. Both of them. Now, what kind of fools wear a mask outside that are 28 years old? You can't catch COVID outside. Do people realize that?
Yeah, I'm well aware.
Yeah.
All right. I want to shift gears to a second, Tracy, because tonight the Baseball Hall of Fame inductees will be announced. And I made the comment before you came on the air. I don't know if you were with us yet in the chat or not. Jeff Kent. Excuse me. I've told the story about the 3 or 4 times he and I kind of got into it a little bit. He did not like the fact that I was doing a national broadcast game of the week back in those days for Fox, while I was also the announcer of the Arizona Diamondbacks. And back in those days, it was primarily the Diamondbacks and the Giants fighting it out for who was the best team in the National League West. He didn't like it. He made it known. We talked about it. We disagreed. We move on. There were other things we would disagree. And he'd be happy to sit there and talk about it. No screaming, no yelling, no F-bombs, no calling each other names. Okay, but here's the thing. Of all the second basemen that have played in the history of the game, Jeff Kent has more home runs and he has the third most RBIs. He has been waiting 8 years on this ballot to get in the Hall of Fame. This is his final year before he's kicked off to the Veterans Committee. Now, you mean to tell me that is not a direct reflection of the writers deciding they don't like the guy as a person, or they don't like his politics, as we've also seen with Curt Schilling. And so what are they doing to him? They're not honoring or rewarding his time as a player, which is supposed to be what you're voting for here. And they're going to punish a guy by keeping him out of the Hall of Fame.
Jeff Kent, I used to run his stats during Extra Innings when I used to host the Extra Innings show on 700 WLW. And I would compare the greatest second basemen of all time. And I would throw in Kent's stats. You can't argue with those stats.
No.
I mean, you're talking about home runs. You're talking about ribeye steaks. You're talking about batting average. Was he the best fielding second baseman? No. He actually moved over and played a little third base, if I remember right. His stats are outstanding for a second baseman. Compare those stats with Bill Mazeroski, right? Who hit 272. I hit 273, but it's not about me. He hit 272, was a very good fielder, but he's in the Hall of Fame. And the writers get so personal. If they do not like you, they won't have you. And you mentioned Curt Schilling. I'm gonna look next time I'm on. I'm gonna look at Curt Schilling's stats because they're pretty strong. But there's a conservative voice that the liberal media doesn't like, right? So they don't have him in the Hall of Fame. He deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. When you compare Scotty Rowland's stats, great fielder. Maybe one of the best fielding third basemen of all time. Mike Schmidt said he's the best fielding third baseman he's ever seen. But offensively, is he a Hall of Famer? I mean, the highest he ever finished for MVP was 4th. So I just look at this and I got to shake my head. I mean, Scotty Rowland, good. I'm not knocking him. But is he a Hall of Famer? I don't think so. Jeff Kent, he is.
Well, and you are spot on. And I just think it is so spiteful. I think it is so wrong that because you disagree with someone's politics or you think, and this could go both ways. I mean, if you had a bunch of conservative guys in this case, to keep a guy out of the Hall of Fame because he is an uber liberal voice, I would argue that's wrong too. So this has nothing to do with which side you're on. But there is no debate when it comes to the writers on where most of them would come down on a political spectrum. And so this isn't like, talking about disinformation or disinformation or whatever it might be. This is a reality that this guy as a player, and that's what you're supposed to be voting on, right? And the ironic part about it is, Tracy, is I made the comment before you came on. Most of the guys that are voting now have never met Jeff Kent, they never covered Jeff Kent, and they never even saw Jeff Kent play. And I'm not here to be the guy's PR person because, like I said, I didn't like him either. Right. But if I had a vote, which I don't, there is no chance on God's earth I'm keeping that guy out of the Hall of Fame.
Well, compare his stats. Well, let's do Joe Morgan. And please, I'm not going to take anything away from Joe, but Joe didn't have really good years in Oakland. He didn't really have good years in Houston, and he actually had those 3 years in Cincinnati. I think it was 74, 75, 76, were the best of all time as far as a second baseman. But if you match Kent's stats to Joe Morgan, it's not even close. And for Kent not to be in the Hall of Fame, I think it's an outrage.
Well, I'm just looking up, and believe me, I'm not comparing in any form or fashion Joe Morgan to Jeff Kent. Morgan was a better player all around in every way, shape, or form. But, you start getting into some of these things. Kent was a lifetime 290 batter. 290. That is raking. You know it, and
For a second baseman? How many second basemen? Those were the days second basemen didn't hit like they do now, right? Who's a better hitting second baseman? Okay, Joe Morgan. Who else? Go ahead,
okay,
Bobby Grich.
Kent played roughly 400 fewer games than Joe Morgan. So, and as far as plate appearances, Morgan had over 2,000 more, okay? And at bats, Joe had less than 1,000, okay? But that's still a pretty significant difference. Base hits in 1,000 more plate appearances, it is almost a wash. Kent 2,400, Morgan 2,500. Doubles, Kent 560 in fewer at-bats, fewer plate appearances. Morgan 440. Home runs. Jeff Kent hit over 100 more home runs than Joe Morgan. Runs batted in. Joe Morgan hit third in the Reds lineup. Jeff Kent hit fourth in the Giants lineup behind Barry Bonds. Now, some could say Bonds walked all the time, which is true, but Bonds also knocked in a lot of runs. Runs that were off the base pass by the time Kent walked up to the plate. Kent knocked in 1,500 runs. Morgan knocked in 111. Now, stolen bases, no contest there. Morgan walked a ton more than Kent did, and Kent struck out more. But on base percentage, Joe is higher because of the walks. Slugging percentage, Kent better. OPS, Kent better. Total bases, Kent better. So, look, I just don't know how somebody puts their head on the pillow at night.
No.
And
how do you resolve that, Tom?
Because of his politics or the way he chooses to express himself, it is appalling that we are talking about putting in somebody like Billy Wagner, with all due respect. I love Billy Wagner. Great pitcher. But to think that Billy Wagner has a chance, very good chance, to go in the Hall of Fame before Jeff Kent is a joke.
He's not a Hall of Fame pitcher. Good pitcher, but not a Hall of Fame. I'll tell you another guy that got in. Correct me if I'm wrong. Harold Baines. I mean, a DH got in, right?
Yeah. Well, he had Baines had over 3,000 hits. I think he had, I don't know how many home runs. He had a ton.
Let me give you someone overrated. The most overrated player that I played against. And this is really it'll probably bother you, Tom. Overrated. And I wish I knew because I would prepare as far as the numbers. Like you just broke them down. Those were incredible numbers that you compared Jeff Kent and Joe Morgan. But the most overrated player that I played against was Ozzie Smith.
Why is that?
Because he wasn't a very good hitter. He wasn't a very good hitter. He was a terrible hitter. He was under 200 with San Diego. St. Louis, he was a better hitter. But as far as if you play, in which I did, you had Barry Larkin was our shortstop, and compare him to Ozzie Smith, there's no comparison.
Oh, there's no comparison, but no comparison between
I'll give you another one. Omar Vizquel was better than Ozzie Smith. Alan Trammell, who I also played with, was better than Ozzie Smith. I just thought Ozzie Smith could make some spectacular plays. Didn't have a very strong arm. Didn't have a strong arm like the other guys I just mentioned. But yet he did that flip as he came out, and he's in the Hall of Fame. I don't know why some guys get in and other guys do not. I'm not saying he's not a Hall of Famer, but a little overrated. I think you would agree with that, right, Tom?
I'm starting to look. I always felt that way too, and in some circles, that's sacrilegious to say. Mm-hmm. I always thought that, there were a lot of years in Ozzie Smith's career from an offensive standpoint where you literally could knock the bat right out of his hands.
Look at his stats. Do you have his stats pulled up?
Well, what I'm going to do is and Ozzie Smith, for the record, has said many, many, many times whenever he's asked, he has always said that he believes Dave Concepcion should be in the Hall of Fame.
Absolutely. He was way before his time.
And I just cannot believe some of the numbers when you put them up comparable to those of Ozzie Smith. It really is mind-boggling. The stats, the offensive stats that are in the favor of Concepcion as the head of
who was a better hitter playing shortstop in that era than Davey Concepcion. You talk about a clutch player. First of all, I'm a big fan of Davey Concepcion. When he platooned, we both platooned in 1986. So when there was a left-hander, Davey played, and then I played, right? When there was a right-hander, then Cal Daniels played, and Kurt Stillwell played.
Right.
So Davey would always tell me how to approach this left-handed pitcher. He was always good to me. I mean, really, really good to me. Would help me. Any questions, he stuck up for me. You're looking at one of the biggest Davey Concepcion fans going. Love Davey Concepcion.
The other guy I'm curious to ask you about, because, gosh, I love this guy. And Another guy that I just cannot believe it. And I think you were around him when you were first coming up with the Reds, is Dave Parker.
Well, here, and I hate to always bring myself into the situation, but I was there. So I did play with Dave. And that's when at one time, they had Cal in left, Eric in center, and me in right. They moved Parker to first base, if you remember that.
Yep.
And Paul O'Neill was actually on the bench. So, yeah, Dave Parker was a guy would come into the locker room after a night ball game and be limping. And I would go up to him because if he wasn't playing, then I would play. And I said, Dave, you got to take the day off. You can't play. He says, I'm playing. I says, you can't even walk. He would go into that training room. I says, Dave, you just take the day off. He says, you're not telling me what to do. I'm going to go in that training room. He got ice. He got his knees. Larry Starr, who was a trainer, would rub his knee. He had bad knees. And that son of a gun would go out there and play well. He was a very good outfielder. You know, of course, when I played with him, he was a little slower. But what a team player and a gamer. And he put up great numbers. There was not a single player better than Dave Parker in those 5 or 6 years. Would you not agree?
No,
but there's a guy that had some drug issue or whatever that has been held against him. Another player that should be in the Hall of Fame, Dave Parker.
All right, I want to hit on a couple of other topics here. If I remember right,
Well,
Casey Hammond-Eggers, Casey and Paul, say good morning to Mr. Jones, please.
Yeah.
Hello,
Tracy,
boys.
how are you today?
Good, Paulie. How you doing? Casey, how was your trip?
It was good. It was a great time.
Did you have a good time? Go ahead.
Before we get into this, we got a super chat, and it's a question for you. It's from Everett Henry, and he says, Tracy, how do you feel about your Bengals pick?
First, what's his name?
Everett Henry.
First of all, Everett, how dare you embarrass me on this show? That was a horrible pick. I thought about it. I swear to God, I thought I had it. I didn't place the bet, but I was going to. I could not believe how good the Bengals line played. I'm one of those guys, because I coach football, I watch the offensive and defensive line. Buffalo had no penetration at all. That offensive line smoked them. I have never felt so positive going in the game. I like the Bengals as a team, but I thought the Bills would win. The Bills got destroyed, and I'm a little embarrassed. But Everett, thanks for bringing that up. Appreciate it.
Well, look, I was going to go down this avenue with you anyway, Tracy, and Everett, thank you very much. If I recall, correct me if I'm wrong, I could be wrong, you said early in the year before the Bengals played the Kansas City Chiefs that the Chiefs were your favorite team. Did I remember that right, or is that wrong?
Well, you got a memory like an elephant. I think you got it wrong, Thom. Going into this weekend, you got it wrong. But Thom, I'm a really good flip-flopper. I can do it on the fly. And I'm going to do, because I'm really rooting for the Bengals. I'm what you call a front runner. So I'm liking the Bengals. I will say this about Mahomes. He will be close to 100%. And the reason I say this, they will shoot his ankle full of cortisone. They probably have already drained it, right? And they will numb that son of a gun till he's good to go for that game. I'm just trying to tell you what they do behind the scenes.
I want to ask you this question, because I was thinking about this, and I'm really being serious when I ask you this question, because, for years and years, I worked in the NFL with Chris Spielman, who is one of the great players in the history of the National Football League, and one of the all-time tough guys in the history of professional football as a middle linebacker. And he'd tell me stories about, in a game he fractured his collarbone, and then the bone directly underneath the collarbone at the very upper cases of the rib cage, that was shattered. They shot him up. He went back in the game. He didn't miss but maybe one series in the game. And he used to get so frustrated with guys that hurt their pinky or hurt their whatever, and they're out for the game or they miss a game, whatever it might be. But I was thinking, when you just said, all right, walk me through, you injure your ankle like Mahomes did, okay? And we're not saying this is what the Chiefs did or didn't do.
Right.
But just from a theoretical standpoint, you're shooting it with a lot more than cortisone. You're shooting it with something that's going to numb it up. Here's my question, though, Tracy. At what point, if they put it in your right ankle, whatever it is they put in there, to try to prevent the pain from being as bad as it normally would be without it, at what point, or is there a fine line there where now the player doesn't feel the foot or ankle well enough to even be able to put the foot in the ground to move? You know what I'm getting at here?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. And that, I think, could play into it. They're going to numb it so much. Back in my days, they used to shoot cortisone. I probably had 10 cortisone shots in my knees. And they work good for about 24 hours. And then after 24 hours, it wears off. And you feel like you're 100%. But I do worry about the coordination with Mahomes and not feeling, is it his right ankle or his left hand? It really doesn't matter. Just his coordination. That's a great question, because you got to be able to feel. You got to be able to get a sense of where your feet are at. And I just think he's going to be really numb. I don't think it's going to make a difference. I like the Bengals that much. I really do. What I saw on the offensive line, defensive line as well. I thought incredible coaching. By the way, Callahan is out of here. And someone's going to hire him. I like to hire offensive coaches. I can find defense. I need to hire an offensive coach. Callahan has a very good game plan. I mean, he's got some weapons, but what a great job. Great coaching.
How about Tracer dropping a Brian Callahan on us here?
That's why we have him on.
You know, let me throw something else at you. And Tom, you could talk on this. Tony Romo talks too damn much. Would you ever tell your analyst sitting next to you that you need to settle down and take a deep breath because he becomes a distraction? I liked Romo, but he had too many of these. He needs to slow down on the caffeine. He'll talk like I do. He was really a distraction. I tell you what, I like Olsen, I like Aikman, and I like Chris. But I'm not a Romo fan. I don't know if anyone caught that. It was a distraction.
I'll tell you, well, to answer your question, the first question you asked, yes, there have been many, many times I've been sitting next to somebody and, we'll get to a commercial break and I'll kind of say, hey, man, both of us need to back off a little bit here. It's too much talking, not enough crowd.
Yeah.
Just relax a little bit. Both of us relax. I was guilty of running at the mouth too, so I get it. But I got to tell you, I was in the other camp. Most people that started listening to Romo when he first burst on the scene, and he's predicting plays and everybody out there. Yeah. A lot of people love the guy. Couldn't get enough of him. Now as time has gone by, that's starting, I think, to level off a little bit. But I hate to, I was reading the chat. But I got to tell you, for me, he's starting to grow on me a little bit. Does he talk too much sometimes? Yes, I think a lot of them talk too much sometimes. But I think that he's the only one of those analysts out there that to me is sort of unfiltered. Does that make sense?
I agree. And he talks about a play before it happens. All these other guys, and I'm not going to mention the one that does it, breaks down that play after it already happened. The guy makes a great play from, his linebacker. Oh, that guy, he's been great all year. Well, say it before he makes that play. Or say, that quarterback's a little weak, and Romo does go out on a limb and predict some plays. But Sunday, he wasn't very good at that. I thought he missed a lot of plays.
Well, and look, I agree. And it was my criticism of him before. But, look, I think he's been enjoyable. I think him and Nance have been an enjoyable listen for Bengals fans. A lot of them out there, all they want to do is kill Romo because he talks about Mahomes and he talks about Allen. Casey's at the top of that list. He was a guy applauding when you were taking a shot there at Romo. I mean, Casey is like south.
Yeah, I'm not criticizing. Wait a minute. Hold on. I don't want to criticize Romo too much because I can never do his job. But I just thought that Sunday he was wound a little bit too tight, talked too much, and I thought he was a distraction during the game. And I don't think that's what broadcasters. Tom, you were never a distraction. I always tell you, you are the best when it comes to football. I like you better. I've said that to you, that you're better on football than you are on baseball. And who's that candy-ass lead guy that was with Olsen 2 weeks ago. Do you know what I'm talking about? The real cheesy guy?
No, he's a great dude. Great dude, Kevin Burkhardt.
No,
Great
I'm talking.
dude.
Not Burkhardt was fine. It was the week before.
No, they're Fox's number one team. Unless Burkhardt was gone for some reason, I don't know. I don't really
Yeah, he
watch
was.
much NFC anymore. I really don't.
Really
Casey,
cheesy.
you were getting ready to say something. What were you going to say?
No, I was just gonna say, I think Romo is he shows a lot of favoritism towards one side. I know these two probably don't agree with that statement, but I think he shows a unfair biasness, and he also, like you said, has been very distracting as of late, making those predictions, and they're not coming through, and he's just all over the place, it seems like. And some people like that. They like the enthusiasm. To me, it's starting to become – I used to like it, but now I'm like, it's getting really annoying now. It's getting distracting. And when you get a bad disposition with someone who feels like they don't like your team or don't respect your team, you all automatically, whatever they do, their thing that they're known for, it just rubs you off the wrong way.
Yeah,
All right,
I agree with you.
Do you guys have anything, before we let Tracy go, do you have anything on a personal note that we need to update Tracy on or get his thoughts on before he gets out of here?
Well, I am trying to get my tux situation all figured out, trying to figure out what well, I already know what I'm going to wear. I'm wearing all black.
Are you wearing a light blue?
No, I'm wearing all
No,
black.
don't do the blue.
Blue's
a horrible
black.
Come on.
Black blazer, or I don't know what the
Tux?
Yeah, that's
well,
right.
it's
you're
all
right,
black
okay.
tux, but the underneath part, what is that?
So,
Consider
like,
just
are
the,
you
the
wearing
button shirt?
So you're just wearing a white tuxedo shirt?
No, I'm wearing black with that too. It's all black.
Wow.
Oh.
Now, Tracer.
What?
I mean, I was joking when I said the light blue. That's something I could have pictured you in, Tracy, at the prom back in Southern California back in the old
That's
days.
exactly what I had. I did
But
have the blue.
I mean, black shirt. I'm not on board with that, Tracer.
Is that an Antifa thing, or what is that, Casey? That whole thing that's very.
Yeah, he got that down in Atlanta after this past weekend. Is that the deal?
No. We are doing all black because we saw one of our favorite content creators in his wedding. He wore all black, and it looked really good. He wore a very slim cut suit, and I'm gonna replicate it. It looked really good, and I think I'll look good in it.
So wait a minute now. You're wearing a black coat, a black pants, black shoes, black shirt, black tie.
Yep, all black.
Tracer, do you think that's a foreshadowing of sort of a, I don't know, to me, I don't know
that's
about
way
that for
too
a
much.
wedding, man. I don't know.
But black is very thinning, so I can understand that with Casey a little bit. Casey,
Yeah,
Casey, did you have a good time in Buffalo? Let me ask you: did you get any fights? Did you guys do some drinking? Did you pick up any wool? Did anything happen?
No, no fighting, no wool. I had I had some of that.
Watch your
blue
language.
light. I had blue light.
Labatt.
Yeah, Labatt. I had some Labatt blue light. I enjoyed that. We were being obnoxious, though. Me and my best man, we were the obnoxious Bengals fans amongst a ton of Bills. And I had already talked about this when I came back Monday, but the Bills Mafia didn't impress me.
Tracy, Casey is out on Bills Mafia, Tracy.
They didn't break any tables while I was there, and I was there early. Tailgating, and it just seemed like the Bengals took over the place. But I will say, dollar in the jar, the Bills' hospitality and them being nice, that was in full force.
They're pretty good people.
They're very nice people.
Yeah, they were.
I'm not surprised.
Congratulating us.
Yeah.
They were, they admitted defeat. They were, asking us how we're gonna get back home, making sure we're safe. things like that.
You know,
That
Casey,
was
who
fun.
it sounds like? It sounds like Raider Nation, a lot like Raider Nation when they were in Los Angeles. Hey, one more thing, and I know I got to go because I got to talk to the cops, get that freeloader out there in my apartment. But Damar Hamlin, remember they showed the video? They showed the picture of him?
Yeah.
That wasn't him. Just that's what they're talking about, the conspiracy theorists, which I'm one of. I don't think that was him.
This is
You never saw his face, did you?
It's a Bruder film here.
Yeah, this is a big deal. This will be breaking. Conspiracy theorists, that was not Damar Hamlin sitting in that suite. Just going to tell you, because remember, all us conspiracy theorists, all that stuff's turning out to be true. Right, Tom?
Yeah, there's a lot of it. I can't argue with you there, but I'm not buying the Hamlin thing. Paul, anything real quick for Tracy?
No, I got nothing.
All right. Tracy?
Good job, Paul.
All right.
I'm getting a haircut today. That's not too exciting.
I swear to God, so am I.
No way.
I'm paying 25. See this hair? Look at that. $25 for a haircut. Is that a lot?
I think that's what I'm paying, but I might get the family discount. I'm going to my girlfriend's
And
cousin.
I give them a $10 tip. That's way too rich for you.
Well, do you get the shampoo too? Like, do you do the whole thing or
No.
do you just cut it? Okay.
No foo-foo. Those are what the little wimpy guys do. I just get a haircut. He's a professional. Kirby's his name. Down there at Bellevue Barbershop. Great place to get a haircut.
Okay.
Nothing better than the local barbershop. I'm all in.
Right.
I'm always with the guys down there in Marymount, sometimes in Milford. Right there.
You got nice hair, Tom.
Beautiful, no question, no doubt. Falling out, turning white, falling out. Tracer, thanks for the time, my man. Have a great day. We'll catch up on Thursday.
All right, see you guys.
And bring your prediction for the Bengals v. Chiefs on Thursday.
Well, let's slow it down there. I got to think.
Tracy's got to get to the police. He's got to get to the police office. Get that all straightened out. All right, do we have a cherry on top?
We do.
All right, what do we got?
Fire it up.
And it's something that happened on Sunday. It's a testament from a coach to his players. It is
I've seen this. This is good stuff.
This is good stuff. I'll just play it for our fans to listen.
I'm so proud. You guys balled your asses off. The whole world does, you guys. We said a big collective you. Love it.
Frank
Pollock, proud of his guys.
Tell you what, guy's done a hell of a job. I mean, he took a beating from people the first 2 weeks of the season. I thought it was unfair because I thought it was on Zach Taylor for not getting those guys out there together. But they brought this guy in believing he was the right guy for the job. Didn't he used to be in Dallas?
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, and they haven't played in an AFC champ. Pollock's been here 2 years, right?
Yes.
Okay. 2 years in a row. AFC championship game with a line that couldn't protect a bank last year. Right?
Right.
But good enough to get that group to play good enough to get to the Super Bowl. This year, they bring in some studs. They start 15 weeks together. They're starting to mold, protect the quarterback, run game out. All of a sudden, guys start dropping. Collins goes. Kappa goes. Williams goes. And this guy has guys ready to play and played the way they play. The Dallas Cowboys have not played in an NFC championship game in 27 years.
That's
and
tough.
they can. Pollock, he comes here for 2, and then their second straight championship game. He's a part of it. Credit to Frank Pollock getting it done. Nope. Not yet. We don't want to jinx anything.
It's all right, Tom. Jinxes don't exist.
Don't want to jinx. Yes, they do.
do too
They
exist.
very much exist. That's right. Look at Brandon and his mustache. He jinxes this office walking in the door wearing it.
Hey, thanks to Rowdy Everpoint, another $5 super chat. Appreciate it, Rowdy.
Yes, and thanks to all of you who are with us today. We had big numbers today for Tuesday. Very, very big numbers.
Reed and I are going to do Not Too Picky now on Tuesdays because that was the only day we didn't have a follow-up show.
Yeah.
So we're going to do that today.
Oh, good.
We're going to start doing that on Tuesdays because we didn't have anything on a Tuesday. So.
Well, I can't believe after you just told me the other day that what's this?
Oh, this is the super chat that Rowdy just sent us. Ken Riley looks like he'll finally make the Hall of Fame. Is it time for the Bengals to finally retire number 13? It's a shame it hasn't happened.
They should retire.
Yeah.
Especially if the guy goes in the Hall of Fame.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I mean, Kenny Anderson's jersey's retired up there, right?
So.
Is that retired up there now or no?
The Ring of Honor.
Or the Ring of Honor.
Yeah.
Ring of Honor.
Is it retired?
I don't think so.
Andy Dalton wore it, right?
Yes.
He wore
or
the
14.
same number.
14?
Dalton wore 14. Yeah.
14?
Yeah, and Kenny Anderson wore 14. Anyway, okay.
Do a joint retirement with Dalton and Anderson.
That's exactly right. Joint.
What were you going to say though? Before?
No. We're good to go tomorrow. No, I was just going to say maybe you're going to give up some women's basketball picks tonight. You said that's where you make all the money. Where you make all the money.
All the money.
You're holding back. You're not filling in all the viewers and Not Too Picky, which begins right now. Thank all of you. We'll see you tomorrow.
At United Dairy Farmers, we've perfected freshness in our family bakery, where we use only the finest ingredients, like thick, high-quality glazes on our signature donuts, before delivering them fresh from bakery to store every day. UDF, made for you.
If your AC or furnace is struggling, turn to the experts at Bartell's Heating and Cooling. Their certified technicians get the job done right the first time, and if you need a new unit, Bartell's will give you upfront pricing with no hidden fees. Plus, ask about Bartell's 0% interest financing for 60 months. Learn more at bartellsheatingandcooling.com. Bartell's Heating and Cooling, for a comfortable way of life. Eli's Sports Bar and Grill, proudly sponsoring high school football with 3 locations in Mason, Liberty Township, and Ross, Ohio. Our 10-foot screens guarantee a great view from every seat in the house. Eli's Sports Bar and Grill, the best place in Cincinnati for sports, food, and fun.
Where can you turn when you're in pain? Turn where more high school, college, and pro athletes turn. Where your neighbors and weekend warriors turn. Turn to Beacon Orthopedics and Sports Medicine and get superior care on your schedule. That's the Beacon difference.
Check out our fresh arrivals at Jake Sweeney Used Cars. Over 250 used vehicles weekly. All makes, all models. From economy to luxury, Jake Sweeney, the original used car superstore.
Welcome into Not Too Picky. Today is Tuesday, January 24th, 2023, and Reed and I have decided that we're going to start doing Not Too Picky on Tuesdays as well as Thursdays. This doesn't exempt us from Thursday, but we're going to do it on Tuesdays now instead of Mondays because we had the box lunch on Monday. Didn't have anything after Thom's show on Tuesday, so we figured this fit in and give you some college basketball for Tuesday and Wednesday. Anything else, too? I know Casey has a parlay. He's been cooking up. He was working hard over there during Thom's show, cooking up a parlay.
Love that.
Got to get you to Kansas City.
Got to get us to Kansas City. And you know what? Don't say we're doing it just because we had some space to fill on a Tuesday. We just wanted to spend a little more time
That's
up
true,
here at the
with
desk.
all of you.
Yes, absolutely.
So where do we stand? Where do we stand on the trip to Kansas City?
Trip to Kansas City. So we put out our card yesterday. It was our first losing card in well over a couple weeks, which we really just started putting out cards again on Twitter last week. Every single one of the cards we put out last week were winners. Last night's card did not win money, lost about a unit. We hit 2 parlays last week.
But you were 2-0 last night.
I was 2-0.
Yeah.
I was 2-0.
I dragged their group down.
Went 0-2, and then the parlay missed. We hit 2 parlays last week. We had a really bad parlay, but here's the thing about the good and bad thing about the parlay is it doesn't matter if you miss 1 leg of the parlay or 7 legs of a parlay.
Yeah.
You all lose. So we did bad parlay yesterday. We'll get it back going today. We'll tease it later on.
So there's a lot going on today and tomorrow. Decent night tonight in college hoops. Ohio State plays tonight. They play at Illinois tonight. Ohio State's underdogs. That's a game they need. But a pretty decent night overall tonight. And then tomorrow, another great night. Tuesday and Wednesday start getting things ramped up. Thursday might be better than tomorrow. But Ohio State, Illinois, probably the best game tonight. North Carolina plays Syracuse tonight. I don't know how much that gets.
K-State, Iowa State.
K-State, Iowa State.
Yeah.
Kansas State, 5-point underdogs.
Yeah, I was looking at that, and, call me a square there, but they're one of the best teams in the country against the spread. They're 5.5-point dogs against a lower-ranked team, and they're playing their best basketball of the season.
Now, Iowa
Call
State's
me a square.
Iowa State's playing really well, too. Don't take anything away from Iowa State.
Right.
Iowa State, number 12 in KenPom right now.
And K-State's looking at a chance to win the Big 12. While a few teams are. What do you see?
I will stand corrected on Iowa State. They've lost 2 of 3.
Yeah, you want to talk about laying a trap for Vegas, and call me a square, but I think I'm going to take Kansas State tonight.
It's in Ames. It is at Iowa State.
I don't care. Kansas State's
care.
the better team, 5.5 points.
My pick of the day was Ohio State +4 at Illinois. Illinois has had a really rocky season. They've been up and down. They've looked at times like they could win the national championship. They've also looked at times like they shouldn't even be in the NCAA tournament, and there was no better example of that than against your Indiana Hoosiers last week. They looked terrible last week against Indiana.
Our Hoosiers looked really good, is what you're saying.
Yeah, they looked real good. Yeah.
I like Ohio State too. I like that.
Yeah,
I like that
Ohio
game.
State +4. Kentucky -6 tonight at Vandy. Thing about Vandy is they haven't won a good game this year. They don't have that really big significant win. They have a couple of decent wins, but they don't have that huge win. But what they've done is they've played the good teams close. There's no moral victories, but they've played the good teams close. I don't think they win tonight. I think Kentucky, but 6 points for this Kentucky team on the road at Vandy.
That's a lot to cover. That's a lot to cover.
It's a yikes.
What do you think about the other Big 12 game? That is TCU versus Oklahoma. TCU 6.5-point favorites at home against Oklahoma.
It's a lot, but TCU's been playing really well.
Yeah, they shot out the gym against Kansas on Saturday.
Yeah, and I'm trying to figure out how much I want to read into that game.
Right.
Because they, like you said, they shot out of the gym, and that was coming off a stretch where they had lost 3 out of 4.
Now Kansas is on a skid, too.
And so how much do you read into that game against Kansas?
No doubt.
But this is a TCU team that had started 13-1, 2-0 in the Big 12, and then they dropped 2. They lost a close one to Iowa State, lost by 4 to Texas, rebounded, got that win against Kansas State. TCU 6.5 at home, a lot of points. I would lean TCU there at home. Oklahoma, poor Oklahoma. They're 2-5 in the Big 12. Their wins are Texas Tech and West Virginia. Texas Tech is not good. They're good relative to major conference basketball. They're 65th. But they're just not good overall. Texas Tech still looking, I believe, for their first win in the Big 12. They may have picked one. No, they're still 0-7. 10-9 overall. Texas Tech not good. They did beat West Virginia. Oklahoma did. They beat West Virginia and Morgantown by 1, but even West Virginia's really struggled to close out games this year. I would take TCU there. I will not bet that game. I'll take TCU, but I would take TCU.
Yeah,
I am taking Ohio State. I'm taking Kansas State. You're not believing in the Hoyas. I don't blame you. They've given you no reason to over the last 3 years. But I will be damned if I am not on the Hoyas whenever they get it done. I'm on the Hoyas tonight.
So for you guys that don't know, Paul has been clamoring for Georgetown to get their first Big East win since winning the Big East tournament 2 years ago.
Yep.
And he bets their money line seemingly
when they're
not playing
every game.
A 20-point team, right?
Yeah.
Right, a 20-point dog, but when they have a shot, 2.5-point dogs here tonight, he's like, this is where I'm going to take my shot for Georgetown to win outright. I still just don't see it. You mentioned that the Alabama Crimson Tide are a wagon, especially even against the spread. I mean, they're winning every SEC game by double digits. You want a small team, small school, that is also a wagon in their conference? The Kent State Golden Flashes.
Yes, they are.
They are 12.5-point favorites tonight against Northern Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
Northern Illinois, I believe, is the worst team.
Terrible.
Their second worst team in the MAC. Kent State is beating everyone by double digits, and they're 12.5-point favorites tonight against Northern Illinois. I mean, you can't put a whole lot of units on a MAC game, but this is a game that you got to like the edge.
Yeah, they're terrible. Northern Illinois is terrible. Kent State is going to be a real dangerous 13 seed or whatever they end up in the tournament. That's not a team I would want to play if I was a high major team getting a 4 seed or a 5 seed in the tournament. They could end up maybe as a 12 depending on how they close the season and win the MAC. Kent State is good, and they are going to cause some issues in March. I could see them winning a game in the NCAA tournament, no doubt. They are led by the MAC Player of the Year, I believe, in Sincere Carey. They're a good team.
Yeah, their last 4 games, they've won 3 of them by double digits. They just beat Ball State by 20. The closest game that they had was against Ohio, who's another very good MAC team.
They're 16-3.
Beat them by 5. Kent State looks really good, and they're playing one of the worst teams in MAC tonight. I mean, just take a flyer on it. 12.5-point favorites against a bad Northern Illinois team.
So you mentioned Alabama. I did not realize it, and this is totally off topic, but I did not realize last night I was on a Twitter space, and somebody brought up an Alabama and Creighton rivalry because I had a Creighton fan and an Alabama fan in the Twitter space at the same time. My mentions, they're still going on Twitter. Alabama and Creighton hate each other. I had no idea. And it wasn't even like a shtick. Like, I had legitimate people in my mentions.
The 2 biggest brands in college sports.
Alabama and Creighton.
Absolutely.
Undeniable.
Omaha, Nebraska.
It was unreal. I had a radio host from Tuscaloosa in my mentions last night going on about Creighton.
Did they steal a coach? Like, did they?
No, it was an NCAA tournament game. They felt like one of their players got fouled at the end of a game against Creighton like 10 or 11 years ago. It was unbelievable. It's still going 12 hours later.
Yeah. So, guys, some people are talking about the NFL games this week. We'll get to that on Thursday. Need to read into a little bit more. The spread has moved around a lot on the Bengals game. They started out as 1.5-point dogs. They're now near 2-point favorites.
I think they are 2-point favorites.
2-point favorites.
I'll go and check.
And then the other game, that's the Eagles 49ers. That's 2.5 points. You got to read into it. I mean, at this point in the season, you got so much tape on both teams that the spreads, a lot of the times there's not an edge either way unless Vegas is laying a trap. But more often than not, especially these are the 4 best teams in the NFL, and no one can disagree with that at this point. They're going to be incredibly good games. So we'll get into that on Thursday. There's a trend that's going on TikTok right now. And you tried it.
I did try it.
And it is, some people are calling it the $10 to $10K in 10 days challenge, where simply they take $10 every single, or $10 start out with, and they double their money every single day for 10 days.
Ladder challenge.
The ladder challenge. We're gonna try and start that back up on Not Too Picky. You tried it last week, made it to day 2.
I won the first one, lost the second one. You got to put some steam behind it. And credit to this guy on TikTok. It was
calling our shot. Yeah,
is that his name?
Yeah, calling our shots.
He got to day 9. So he was trying to take $100 to $10K.
It was 10 to 10K, and he was up. He was up at the $1,200 bet part. And actually, he lost. This will make you Bengals fans happy. He lost, and he put his parlay out, and it's like all these short legs to equal up to even money. And the final leg was the Bills to cover 13.5, which, of course, they didn't. Plus 13.5.
It was crazy because I think it was plus 6.5. I think because Bengals plus 17.5 had the same odds, and everybody in the replies was like, "Why would you not? Why would you take Bills plus 6.5 instead of the Bengals plus 17.5 when you have the same odds on both?"
Right. He actually, it was awesome because he said at the end of the video that he put out for day 9, he says, "If this misses, then I know nothing about sports." And of course, that was the one leg that missed out of everything. But yeah, so we're gonna try that back up. Before we get into our picks and kind of round out this show, there's 2 trends that we have seen in college basketball that you and I both like. You like Georgetown first halves a lot.
Oh my God, Georgetown first half. And this is not a shtick about the Georgetown money line. This is actual. Georgetown this year has played exceptionally well in the first half, but as teams go into the locker room, get their legs under them, adjust, Georgetown is ranked terribly. All of their predictive metrics, everything about Georgetown is terrible, but their personnel is not awful. Like, Primo Spears is a good point guard.
Yeah, he's really good.
They have athletes on their team that can score the basketball and that can play well. They just don't play well as a team, and they don't win basketball games. They can't close things out, but they've been close. They played Xavier decently well at home and on the road. They played Villanova extremely tough at the Pavilion and probably should have won that game. Mm-hmm. They have had several games this year that they should have won, and they just can't win a game. And when I say win a game against a high major team that they haven't done since 2021. I'll be honest, I'm not sure that this is the best matchup in the conference for Georgetown because DePaul's kind of the same way where they're just a little bit of a better Georgetown team.
Right, they're a little bit better
where
version.
they kind of have the good point guard, Emoji Gibson, and some other things. But they come out of the locker room strong, back to your point about the first half. If it's like a 16-point line, I think they were like plus 17 or something against Xavier on this past Saturday. Usually the first half lines are about half of that. They covered that easily.
Yes, they did. They covered the game as well.
Yeah.
You like that, and I have just hitched my wagon onto UCLA unders because they have hit 9 out of 10 times, and if you watch those games, they often get late in the ball games, get very muddy. So I count down the days between UCLA unders, which the next time they play is Thursday. Of course, the one time that it did not hit was when I needed it to hit for a $1,000 parlay, but we won't get into that.
So UCLA's over. UCLA, I think, was 9-1 to the over
When they were playing non-conference play. Yep.
And then in Pac-12 play, they're now 9-1 to the under.
Right.
It's crazy.
It is
just
crazy.
Totally flipped.
They hit the under by 40 points on Sunday or Saturday, whenever they played against Arizona State, the game that they lost. But I like that. So,
scam of the day. Scam
Whoa.
of the day.
Oh, wow.
Whoa. What's the scam of the day?
What do you got for us, Trace?
What do you got?
Well, don't fall victim to the Wildcats tonight. Kentucky, you think they're good. You might fall asleep.
Oh, here we go.
You've had a couple nights rest. You think that perhaps the Kentucky Wildcats are turning around. I know there's a lot of Big Blue Nation fans in Southwest Ohio. Don't fall victim to the scam that Calipari is running down there in Lexington, okay? He is giving out free money tonight. I'm just telling you. I looked it up. I know we got a lot. This is a public service announcement for all of our viewers. There's a lot of Kentucky fans around here. They think their program is back. They think they're on the right track. They're not. And Vanderbilt's going to prove that tonight. So just wanted to get that out there before the show ended because I feel like that would be a massive disservice to our audience if we did not let them know that Kentucky is in fact not a play tonight. There's a lot of scams out there tonight, by the way. This board is looking great.
Looks great.
Trace.
Looks great. Stay away from Ole Miss, Trace.
Oh, yeah.
I will.
I saw that, too.
Stay away from Ole Miss.
Trace, where do you stand on Georgetown?
I am all in on the Hoyas. In fact, I mean, I don't know if you've looked at the numbers, folks.
Oh, yeah, maybe.
But the sharp knives are out, and they are all on. We'll do another one. You ready for this?
Leader of men.
Patrick Ewing. He is all in on the Hoyas. And you know what? Tonight is the night to show you that patient pays off. Just so you know. Patrick, all the Georgetown alums are going to be like, man, after tonight, maybe Patrick's our guy. I don't know. But we'll see.
I don't know about that.
I don't know about that.
I don't know about that. Maybe this gets him another contract.
By the way, is this going to turn into Not Too Picky and Box Lunch is going to turn into like the college basketball shows? By the way, if you guys have this like nice little soundboard here in front of you, if I hear Thom talk about college basketball in a negative light one more time, when he spent 2 hours, it felt like, talking about Jeff Kent in the Baseball Hall of Fame.
Jeff Kent.
If he doesn't get, where's it at?
Oh, bro.
If he doesn't get that, if he doesn't get that from you, Paul, when he starts talking negatively about college basketball, I'm going to be sorely disappointed in you.
Yeah, that was a wild take yesterday. Like, at some point, I just kind of had to be like, all right.
So I've got on college basketball, on what Trey said about University of Kentucky. So we have a bet tracking app that we use called Pickett.
Highly recommend.
Highly recommend. They
Highly
don't sponsor
recommend.
the show, but if you should use it to
I'll put it in the chat.
To sponsor your or to track your bets.
Pikkit. You don't bet on the app.
Right.
You just link your sports book, and then you can track what you bet.
So for people that are watching the show that aren't in our Discord, we have a Discord and we talk about gambling a lot, and we have rules. We have rules in the Discord that we have learned. We have a no betting list, and UK was the first honorary member of the no betting list in the Discord. I get on Trace's Pickett because it is a social media site. You can see what other people are betting. You don't see the dollar amounts. You just see the games they're picking. And it showed most bet on team, the University of Kentucky Wildcats men's basketball team.
It's easy money.
And I was like, Trace, we have rules as a society. Meanwhile, the other team on the no bet list is Villanova, and that is the team that I have bet the most. So I'm a hypocrite in that matter. Casey.
Yes, sir.
You were working hard on a parlay during that Tracy Jones
just scared
segment.
Casey. You just scared. You just legit scared Casey.
Casey, I'm calling on you. The teacher's calling on you. What's the parlay looking like? Do we have it?
He was in the lab on CJ McCollum's game log page.
Yeah, I was trying to parlay 2 same game parlays, or parlay plus, as they say on Betfred, but I'm not sure if you can do that. So I've got 2 individual parlays from 2 different games.
Okay.
How about that?
How about that?
Great Mike Schmaltz.
Yeah, no Schmaltzy. We still got Schmaltzyisms.
Thursday.
All right, so I've got the Nuggets spread. Hang on, I actually took a picture of this. What am I doing? I don't need to get in the app.
Do we need to give you some time?
We have some. We're gonna win tonight.
Yeah.
Do we? Because I was down bad last night. Oh, also,
I did well last.
If we were in the, yeah, I didn't even really look around. The one that I missed that was so bad that I missed was Oakland. Oakland won outright by 12, and I forgot to put it in. They were 4-point underdogs, and Oakland was way better than Detroit. They were, for some reason, 4-point underdogs on the road. I'm getting in the weeds here about Horizon League ball.
Trace,
yes,
we are faithful disciples to the system.
Yes,
Ole Miss is a system play right now.
No, let me see that.
You can take it, but I'm just telling you. I think. Oops, sorry. Ole Miss is absolutely one of those teams that Vegas just misses on.
Can you give me a time that they play?
They play at 7 o'clock against Missouri. I think it's just
take the underdog in that game, whoever it is.
See, you think that's a system play? I don't actually, because there's such a discrepancy in the percentages of that, to where you could argue that there's sharps that are on that, because it's not even. Right. I'll tell you what looks great.
Ole Miss is not covered in
Buckeyes.
1 out of 8
Ohio
games.
State. I am all in.
I like Ohio State.
Yeah. All in on
They're
the
playing
Buckeyes.
well. Illinois is playing like dog doo-doo. I like Ohio State.
I mean, Ohio State is that at Illinois?
It's at Illinois.
It don't matter.
By the way, Illinois, Michigan State, we can just turn this into a college basketball show. They do it right when it comes to, like, their seeding. Kansas does as well, but I'm just saying, like, those 2 programs, they've decided we're putting all of our students right there in the front row.
Well, opposite of the camera.
Yeah,
so you
and
have,
they're
you have
all
a hard
right
camera.
down, like, they're not at the end zones. They're literally all the way down the floor.
So you know who does this is actually, I mentioned this before, the WWE. They have a camera on one side, and when they sell tickets, they always sell it to the opposite side of the camera first. They will not sell on the camera side. So you can go to a WWE event, and half the arena will be empty. But on TV, it looks like the entire place is packed. It's a packed capacity crowd just because the camera, and that's what Michigan State does. They put all their students opposite of the hard camera to make it look like the entire lower bowl is nothing but Michigan State student section, which is electric, and I think all teams should do that.
Yeah, Illinois does the same. It's the same way. It's a great setup. Casey, you're smiling.
All right, you guys ready?
I'm ready.
All right,
born ready.
If you can figure out how to parlay this together on Betfred, then I implore you.
Let's do it. We'll find a way.
Yeah, we'll find a way.
Implores us.
Here's the first parlay plus.
Let's do it.
LA Clippers, -2.5.
Okay.
LeBron, get over 30 points.
Oh, it's a
Kawhi
battle
Leonard,
of
over
LA?
25.
Oh, it's the Clippers and the Lakers?
Mm-hmm.
It's the Crypto.com game?
Yes, you don't go into Crypto.com.
And that's the first parlay. That gets you plus 300. I think that's pretty doable. And then the second parlay, Denver Nuggets giving up a half point. 16 plus points and assists from, I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name, but it's
Who is this? Come on, Trace, help me out here.
I can't.
You got me on the hook. I'm waiting.
Valenciunas?
Jonas
Valanciunas?
Valanciunas.
Nice.
Come on, guys. How did you not know
Sorry,
that?
man. I mean, I don't keep up. Who's he play for?
He plays for the Pelicans, I think.
Yeah, not a big Pelicans fan.
Najee Marshall.
Najee.
Yeah.
And then 25 points and assists and rebounds from CJ McCollum gets you plus 200. I think that's all of those are doable.
Are you guys big Mac guys? Are you a big Mac guy? Okay. So you're doing, to be clear, you're doing 2 separate parlays.
Yeah, but
three legs each.
Yep. And if you could parlay those together, that's what I would do. I would do that, but I was having trouble doing
Six-legger
that.
again. Casey, you got some legs to you, brother. You're like a marathon runner when it comes
Well,
to parlays.
you put some
It's
money
an
on both of
insect
those.
parlay.
There's nothing better than going on Casey's Picket and seeing 10 units in play to win 1,500 units.
It is wild, man. Casey's got a whole nother level.
Every night. It's the same way. Responsibly.
Responsibly.
Trace.
Guys, Trace, go ahead. Whatever you're
I was just going to ask if you guys are big Mac guys.
Yeah.
Hit
me.
I know nothing about the MAC other than Kid State's really good.
Eastern Michigan looks like a play tonight based
They're
off of
terrible.
They're the worst team
They're
in
the
the
worst team in the MAC.
That's what I wanted to hear. How much do you hate this play, Paul? They are playing against Toledo.
Oh, God.
It looks like it's at Toledo.
21.5.
Eastern Michigan, you're getting 21.5.
Oh, my God. I mean, Matt, you're betting one of the better
Gut
teams
reaction. You hate it or love it?
I mean, I wouldn't play it. Eastern Michigan's the worst. Eastern Michigan is terrible. I mean, they're so bad.
Yeah,
they're embarrassing.
They're 4-15. They have lost. They just lost to Northern Illinois, who is 13-point dogs, and they're the second worst team in the MAC. They lost to them by 21 points.
Yeah, they're bad. They have 4 wins on the season. One of them is not even a Division I team, and they don't have a win higher than 221st. Toledo is.
They lost by Akron.
Wait, what did you
40,
say the line was?
21.5.
21.
That's a lot of points, though.
Ken Palm's got it at 20. All right, Reed, go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask you guys just as a genuine question. LSU 12.5-point dogs tonight against Arkansas. Arkansas's not playing well.
Going in the wrong. They might miss the tournament. They're going in the wrong direction.
And LSU's not very good, but 12.5.
It's one of those games, though, where the teams get up and down the floor so fast and so much, similar to an NBA game. That 11.5, 12.5, whatever you have it at, it's more like feels like 6 because it just, at the end of the game, it could be like a 15-point swing like that.
Right. That's a good point.
It's not like them UCLA Bruins, Reed, where it takes like 9 minutes to get 7 points on the board.
It is awesome betting it under because even if you're way off pace on a UCLA under, which has happened, you still feel confident because you just know at the end of the final 4 minutes of that game, there's going to be like 6 total possessions.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
I can't wait for Thursday. It's my favorite day of the day.
Anything else?
No. We'll put out the KC parlay.
Yes.
Later on today. So what?
There's a ton of system plays tonight, guys.
All right.
I mean, this
we'll be all
board
over
is littered with them.
Trace puts out his picks on our Discord. He has his own channel, Fowler Winners. So you can see what Trace is picking. It's been a pretty profitable system. Our picks
Besides Kansas.
Our picks have been profitable over the past 8 days. We lost 1 unit last night. We won 20 units last week.
Oh.
So we're gonna get back on the horse.
Wait, guys. Are we in the trust tree?
We're in the trust tree.
I played an Australian Open pick at 4 in the morning.
Was that via Zach Gray?
Yeah, I faded him, and I tried to do it in the sets. So I took. Did you see that in the Discord last night?
I took it, never watched it. Don't even know if it hit. Did you
No.
win, Paul?
No. So I took the opposite.
Yeah.
The odds were so bad. So the guy
Tsitsipas is like
Tsitsipas.
Tsitsipas, whatever.
I follow tennis a little bit.
He's like the Josh Allen of tennis, right? Like incredibly talented, but
so the guy that he was playing, there was a pick in the Discord to fade Sitsi for whatever it was, plus 450. The guy that was playing, I didn't know him. He's kind of newer on the tennis scene. For lack of a better term, he'd gotten lucky the last couple of matches. Like the guys he was playing, he had some pretty notable upsets, but they had a lot of unforced errors in their matches, whatever. So I'm looking at that. I'm like, this guy's not. We're not pulling off another upset here. Tsitsipas, he's got a better path to the final. Like he knows he's got to get it done. So he won, but I took him in 4 sets, and he won in straight sets.
Oh no!
So did Zach Gray win or lose?
Zach Gray lost.
Damn, I failed him.
Zach Gray lost.
The odds were too good. I mean, I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah, he lost in straight sets, but I had him in 4 sets. I thought he'd get one. He went to a tiebreak. Didn't win the tiebreak. I woke up and I was like, oh, am I gonna win? They always say Warren Buffett. Learn how to make money.
I got a Joker future.
Make money while you sleep.
You want to know how wild the Joker future is? I took it.
Yeah.
I took it 3 weeks ago. It was minus 130. Still took it to win the tournament.
Yeah.
But how ridiculous is it?
Yeah, that he's that favored.
That it's minus 130 and the guy's got to win, like, at that time, 4 matches.
Right.
I got one very spicy play for you guys, and this is going to be way out of
Well, I got to
left
say something about the sponsor of this book and something
Okay.
that we learned.
Yeah.
You can go ahead. And
I think this might be along what you're about to say.
Well, so we found out on Betfred Sportsbook, who's the sponsor of this show, that if you buy a future, if you take a future and their odds change, Betfred will offer you a cash out. So, for instance, early on in, I think, January 1st, I took the Xavier Muskies to win the national championship at $25 to win, I think, like $1,700. Their odds tripled. So they got 3 times shorter. So Betfred offered me a cash out of that $25 initial $25 bet. They offered me a cash out of like $74.68. So of course I took it. So just something that you guys can look at. Think of it as, I don't know, buying stock. If you think a team's gonna get their odds better, if you think they're gonna start playing better, Betfred will offer a cash out if your odds become closer. So if you take a $50 future at 1,000 to 1, and then all of a sudden they become 500 to 1, then you're going to get a double your money.
Okay, are you ready for this one?
Yeah, what spicy do you got?
Paolo Banchero is probably going to win the NBA Rookie of the Year. But Keegan Murray is 160 to 1 right now. He should probably be like maybe 75 to 1. And he's 160 to 1. I'm not saying he's going to win.
But you're doing that because we found out about Betfred.
But Keegan Murray is an unbelievable value pick for how well he has been shooting the ball in the last 2 months. If you read anybody that writes articles about like dark horse rookie of the year candidates, Keegan Murray is right there. Walker Kessler has been there. Jaden Ivey's having a good season. Ben Mathurin obviously has been having a great year. Paolo Banchero is going to win the award unless something crazy happens. But Keegan Murray is having an unreal stretch in these last couple of months, and there's a lot of value there. So there's my under the radar pick.
All right, love it. Guys, we'll be back Thursday, right?
All right, Thursday. Thanks for listening, everybody.